You are seeking your own doom. Immortal Palace's supreme being only had these 4 words. In the white mists, his gaze was like lightning. He slowly reached out a palm, grabbing forward. Hong! A great quake shook this place. Qin clan's great formation sensed something, releasing blinding radiance, stopping that large hand. That immortal or whatever struggling at death's door. Why didn't he come? Could it be that he can't even walk anymore? Really about to die? Xianxia said with a cold laugh. He already knew that Immortal Palace had an immortal spring that could nurture the primordial spirit and flesh. Otherwise, that ruined immortal would have long died. Meanwhile, this time the ruined immortal, because he was injured, even more so couldn't leave. Speaking blasphemy against the true immortal again and again, your sin will not be pardoned. Immortal Palace's supreme being said with a cold voice. That large hand moved, breaking through the barrier produced by Qin clan's formations. Dao friend, you're going too far, Immortal Qin said. At this moment, in the depths of Qin clan, 5-colored divine light rushed out, surging, carrying boundless energy. Without undoing the seal, it'll be hard for you to stop my Immortal Palace's power. Immortal Palace's supreme being said with a cold voice. Even though he spoke like this, he still backed up a bit, scared that 5-phase mountain would suddenly have its seal undone and smash towards him. Regardless, today, no one can save you. Immortal Palace's supreme being stared at Xianxia, and then looked towards the 5-colored brilliance. Nothing more than a long-tailed wolf. Xianxia berated, his words extremely sharp. Heh! Even if 5-phase mountain undoes its seal today, it still can't change reality. Immortal Palace's supreme being began to chant true scriptures, as if summoning something. Qila! The void split open. A great banner fluttered about, descending from the 9 heavens, directly appearing in Xianxia's hands. This immediately left him stupefied. He couldn't help but look upwards, inwardly surging with emotions. This was the Immortal King Corpse wrapping cloth, the banner of Immortal Ancient. It had previously been of great service in desolate borders battles. This was the supreme treasure of the 9 heavens, belonging to a long-life family. Yet now it actually descended, appearing in his hands. It was clear that someone sent it into the 3,000 provinces, paying attention to this place, lending it to him. When he carefully thought about it, it was most likely Immortal Academy or Sacred Academy's elders who took action. Xianxia already heard that when Wind Clan's old ancestor wanted to come down and get rid of him, it was these 2 elders who stopped him. Now, they came to help him out again. One could see just how close they were to Great Elder Meng Tianjing. The reason why they helped Xianxia now was completely because of giving Meng Tianjing face. Xianxia sighed. When he thought of Great Elder, his heart immediately felt pain. The heavens truly were jealous of great heroes. Who? Immortal Palace's supreme being stopped, staring coldly into the sky. Voila! At this time, Xianxia brandished the great banner, directly slaughtering his way out. This was but the Immortal King Corpse wrapping cloth, comparable to a complete Immortal Dao magical artifact, its power incomparable. Back then, when he was in desolate border, this thing could stop undying beings. The corpse wrapping cloth now had a flagpole, added by a supreme being. However, that pole was definitely not an Immortal Dao weapon. However, the banner itself was enough. Hong Long. Xianxia shook the great banner, directly splitting the skies, sweeping towards the supreme being. The power was incomparably vicious, intimidating to the extreme. Everyone became stupefied. Huang was formidable after all, actually having the assistance of a long-life family from the 9 heavens. Meanwhile, right at this moment, everyone became stupefied, because the power of that great banner was too great. It crushed the heavens, sending that Immortal Palace Supreme being flying. Correct, that powerful individual was careless, thinking that a wave of his sleeves was enough to capture Xianxia. As a result, that Immortal King Corpse wrapping cloth moved, releasing unmatched immortal power. Even though it didn't hit him, he still went tumbling outwards. On the ground, everyone was shocked. 5-phase mountain shook, protecting Qin clan. Otherwise, those fluctuations might destroy this place, the murderous energy too strong and terrifying. Brat, you actually dare humiliate me? Immortal Palace's supreme being said coldly, taking action again. He was at the peak of mortal Tao, able to grab down the sun and moon. However, he was too apprehensive of this banner, actually feeling like his hands were tied, not daring to truly clash with it. Hong Long, sure how attacked again. The banner surface swept out, hacking into the great cosmos like a heavenly blade, cutting through the blue sky, making Immortal Palace's supreme being move his body again, immediately entering outer space. His expression was ugly. The Immortal Tao magical artifact left him vexed and resentful. He didn't dare face it head-on. You old thing, where do you think you are going? Sure how rushed out, chasing after him. Everyone was stupefied. Huang dared chase after Immortal Palace's supreme being? This was simply like something out of a fantasy. They all knew that Huang was formidable, but he still didn't step into that domain after all. How could he chase after someone at the peak of mortal Tao? You've truly angered me, Immortal Palace's supreme being said coldly. Immediately afterwards, he disappeared from his original location, suddenly vanishing. Sure how was inwardly shaken. With a hula noise, he wrapped the great banner around himself, protecting his entire body. As expected, a black fist smashed over, aimed at the back of his head. Hong Long Long. It was as if muffled thunder crashed down. Sure how quickly spun around, the great banner moving out again, crushing heaven and earth, making Immortal Palace's supreme being feel great fear, withdrawing again, moreover disappearing. This great banner had been soaked in the blood of immortal kings, making it completely different. Even Immortal Palace's supreme being felt apprehension, not even having the courage to face it head-on. Young generation, do you think that just because you have an immortal artifact in hand, that I cannot kill you? What is powerful is only the self. All external items are nothing. Immortal Palace's supreme being said coldly. He disappeared, becoming one with heaven and earth, terrifying beyond compare, as if he turned into a part of the universe himself. Hong, sure how exerted force, shattering the outer space skies. Pong. Suddenly, Immortal Palace's supreme being reappeared. His body fell out as if he suddenly suffered a blow. Who? He was startled and furious. Someone attacked him in secret. Sure how understood. The one who gave him the great banner was a supreme being, moreover now taking action in secret. He held the great banner in hand, sweeping it outwards, going all out, bringing it down viciously onto Immortal Palace supreme being. Pong! This time, Immortal Palace supreme being's body became sluggish again, because there were two domains that rushed at him in secret, almost trapping him, about to lock him down in the sky. As a result, when the great banner swept over, his reaction speed was a bit late, directly being sent tumbling by the Immortal Tao great winds again. Someone was taking action in secret, targeting him, a supreme being who was disrupting things. However, outsiders couldn't see anything, thinking that it was all done by Sure Hao. All of them were shocked, completely stupefied. Just how terrifying was Huang. In everyone's eyes, even if Sure Hao had an immortal weapon in hand, if he fought against a supreme being, he would still lose. It was just like giving a child a weapon, they still wouldn't be able to harm an adult. However now, this was a completely different case. Immortal Palace's supreme being suffered greatly. Pong! When powerful ripples spread in the void, Immortal Palace's supreme being was bound again. The great banner swept over, almost hitting him. This time, he backed up in a sorry state. At the crucial moment, he called over the law decree to block the great banner's attack. Kacha! The golden decree shattered, turning into specks of divine light, scattering in that area, extremely dazzling. You dare destroy the law decree of a true immortal? Just a piece of waste paper. You're the only one who thinks it's anything special. At this time, Immortal Palace's supreme being felt a wave of resentment, a bit sullen. There was actually a supreme being targeting him in secret, leaving him in an extremely passive situation. It was to the extent where he sensed that if those two didn't feel some apprehension towards the ruined immortal, they would have long dealt the fatal blow. In the end, he was furious. His current situation really was vexing. He was tossed and turned by the great banner's winds. Even with his status as a supreme being, it truly was humiliating. An ancient incantation sounded, resonating with something in the limits of the world. Hong. In the distance where the foundation of the Immortal Palace was, the bronze Immortal Palace was uprooted. Crushed the void, flying over quickly, hurrying to this place. Not good. The true bronze Immortal Palace has arrived. This is an immortal artifact, someone said with a trembling voice. Everyone felt a headache. Was this now going to be an Immortal Tao great confrontation? Right now, Immortal Palace's supreme being's hair was a mess, clothes tattered, face ashen. If not for his dignity being tarnished, he wouldn't have summoned the bronze Immortal Palace so quickly. With his status, now that he came to capture Huang, he actually had to use this type of divine item. It really didn't make him look that good. Isn't this bullying others too much? At this time, Immortal Qin spoke up. His face was cold, now a bit angered. He had previously said that Qin clan didn't fear things happening. Even if a ruined immortal came, this would still be the case. But that was because he knew the ruined immortal normally couldn't leave his residence, recovering, struggling at death's door. Go! He released a great roar, displaying a secret method, as if he undid some type of seal. Great brilliance erupted from the depths of Qin clan, a divine aura covering heaven and earth. Sure Hao was shocked. Immortal Qin really could undo five-phase mountain seal? Hong. On the ground, five-colored, multicolored light rushed into the heavens. Immortal energy overflowed, the scene extremely shocking, making the sun, moon, and stars tremble. Even the sun was about to fall down, the great cosmos becoming unstable. Then, five-colored immortal light flickered, directly sweeping towards the bronze Immortal Palace, about to seize it away. When he saw this scene, sure Hao naturally wouldn't just watch in a stupor. He frantically brandished the Iron Blood Great Banner, releasing ferocious attacks, targeting Immortal Palace's supreme being. In that moment, outer space shook, sun and moon sinking, stars growing dim. A few great stars exploded on the spot, breaking to pieces. Hong Long. This time, there were two waves of power that rushed at Immortal Palace's supreme being, restricting him again. Pong! Sure Hao's attack slammed into Immortal Palace's supreme being. Even if there was the Bronze Palace protecting him, the enemy still coughed out a mouthful of blood, his body flying outwards. All of this happened too quickly, no one expecting Immortal Palace's supreme being to be the one with the disheveled hair, blood flowing out from the corners of his lips. He was actually sent flying, injured like this. A supreme being came to attack him, yet Huang actually stopped him, moreover causing Immortal Palace's elder to cough out blood, his body flying out. This left every sect shocked. Immortal Palace was always extremely powerful. Ever since the ancient times, it was already a colossus power, never declined, always at the very peak, overlooking the 3,000 provinces. This was especially the case when news spread that they had a ruined immortal still, who didn't feel fear, who dared show any disrespect. Even the 9 heavens long life imperial court and others felt restraining fear, wouldn't provoke them. However, today, a youngster faced the challenge, taking action without any apprehension, fighting intensely against Immortal Palace's supreme being without any thought of personal safety. Moreover, he didn't even suffer much because of it. Immortal Palace's elder revealed his true appearance. When the mist scattered, white hair that was like snow could be seen, his face flushed with an unnatural redness. There was blood at the corners of his lips, his eyes cold. The clash just now made his chi and blood surge. All of his sturdy and imperishable bones released pai-pa noises, almost breaking. Which Dao friends is it? Since you came, then why not go all out? Just come here and fight. Immortal Palace's supreme being said coldly, looking around him. There were 2 supreme beings who were acting against him in secret, making the depths of his eyes incredibly cold. Killing intent appeared. Ruined immortals were the most powerful in the present world. Who dared go against them? Were there really people who dared provoke Immortal Palace's dignity? However, no one replied, the two great supreme beings didn't jump out. Old thing, could it be that you're out of gas? Xianxia said, his voice full of contempt, provoking Immortal Palace's old supreme being. Hee. Haha. When this old one's might dominated the world, no one even knew where your ancestors were. He replied with a sneer. Are you not scared of your words coming back to bite you? Even if your ruined immortal was here, he still might not dare claim to be more ancient than Stone Clan. Xianxia said. Immortal Palace Supreme Being's face became sluggish. This was indeed the case. Stone Clan stood out from the others, a clan that had been passed down from the last great era until this one, having a great history. Unfortunately, this clan had all been lost in Desolate Border, or else how could they not be included in the long life families? This was a clan that was bestowed the title of king before. You can only blame your ancestors for not being sensible, dig in their own graves. Immortal Palace's elder roared with laughter, carrying cold intent, as well as a type of expression of mockery. Hong! Beyond the skies, Xianxia brandished his great banner, sweeping it outwards. His hair flew about, expression in his eyes incredibly fierce. He was now truly angered. In the Battle of Desolate Border, this clan of kings established such glorious contributions. Yet in the end, they were treated with persecution, Stone Clan instead becoming the sinner's blood descendants. It could be said that Immortal Palace was included among those who carried out this judgment, that it had a lot to do with that ruined immortal, thus causing Xianxia to enter an endless period of humiliation and resentment, truly experiencing injustice. This was especially the case when even now, Immortal Palace's elder still spoke like this, making Xianxia surge with endless killing intent. Old bastard, during the Battle of Desolate Border that happened not too long ago when the other side invaded, where were you? You didn't dare face the enemy, cowering in the back. Yet now you have the nerve to bring up past events. Who do you think you are, you dare shame my ancestors? Compared to them, your Immortal Palace people are insignificant cowards who are greedy for life, only knowing how to be a tyrant at home, acting out after the bloody battles of Desolate Border have come to a close. Having a sect like yours really is the 3,000 provinces' disgrace. Xianxia berated. The great banner in his hands fluttered about, producing great winds, moving the great stars in outer space one after another, all of them shaking. Under pew noises, great stars cracked apart and exploded, the power terrifying to the extreme. Dang! The bronze Immortal Palace shone. It rushed over, stopping the Iron Blood War banner. Immortal mist surged between the two, divine light endless, as if an expanse of undying sea was surging. Immortal artifacts clashed. When supreme beings were involved, this type of battle naturally became dangerous to the extreme. Xianxia was in danger. After all, the other side was a supreme being, while he was only a self-release realm cultivator. Comparatively speaking, if he wanted to fight at this point, it was impossible. Supreme Being Realm was an extremely mysterious domain, no need to doubt their strength, impossible to surpass in the mortal Tao realm. It was because only creatures at this level had a chance of touching upon the immortal Tao. Even if the entire 9 heavens 10 earths were searched, from past until now, out of millions and millions of cultivators, just how many supreme beings were there? They were all the pride of heaven from different periods. They were all the leading figures of their respective eras. This type of individual, if they could be killed by those of lower cultivation level than themselves, how could they have even become supreme beings in the first place? That was why now, when Immortal Palace's elder called over the Bronze Palace, Xianxia's situation immediately became incredibly bad, placed in extreme danger. Younger generation, hand over your life, the elder shouted. He used the Copper Palace to block the great banner. Immortal light shone endlessly between the two, the noises like a roaring sea, surging greatly. Moreover, he reached out a large hand, grabbing towards Xianxia, a sinister smile appearing on his face. It was because he discovered that the two hidden supreme beings felt reservations, feared that the ruined immortal would appear, so they didn't appear. Moreover, after Qin Clan's 5-phase mountain shook intensely, it actually became quiet again. He knew that it was most likely the ruined immortal from Immortal Palace's foundation who released his consciousness, intimidating them. Sure enough, Right at this moment, a mysterious ripple swept out. Even though it was extremely light, it left many powerful figures shocked. This was the will of a ruined immortal that was awakening. Perhaps that dormant existence might make an appearance. The situation was critical. While Sherhouse's situation was looking worrisome, suddenly, heaven and earth shook. Immortal Palace's elder's body shook intensely, and then he coughed out blood from his mouth. His fine hairs stood on end, absolutely horrified. It was because the two hidden supreme beings took action again. This time it was different from before. Were they going to go all out and go after his life? Those two were going to fight a decisive battle against him. Honglong. Two streaks of light appeared, carrying immortal energy and hazy, auspicious brilliance as they hacked over. They were impossible to evade, extremely dangerous. At the same time, heaven and earth shook greatly. 5-phase mountain appeared from the depths of Qin clan, actually floating out, the boundless pressure rushing into outer space, suppressing him. "You all dare!" Immortal Palace's elder shouted out, his expression changing. He thought that the two supreme beings and Qin clan were scared, feeling restraining fear towards the ruined immortal. Who would have thought that it was nothing but the calm before the storm? They really dared kill him. Pong! The other side acted out too quickly. Even if he reacted as quickly as he could, he would still be hit. At the very least, the raging power stirred by those two great supreme beings' powerful methods was not something he could dodge. Under Honglong noises, he couldn't help but cough out blood, the blood even gushing out of his body. Of course, the greatest threat was that strange 5-phase mountain. It was as if a true immortal undid its seal, now crushing in his direction. Extremely terrifying. Honglong. At the crucial moment, he avoided 5-phase mountain, but was surrounded by the two great supreme beings' mysterious techniques. His body shook endlessly, blood splashing out, destroying many great stars in outer space. Chi. He rushed towards the bronze immortal palace, wishing to enter inside and avoid the attacks outside. "Old bastard. You still want to hide back into your turtle shell?" Sure moved that great banner, stopping him because the Iron Blood War banner was currently facing the bronze palace. Hong. The bronze immortal palace shook intensely, shaking off the banner surface, revealing its opening. Immortal Palace's elder didn't say a word, hiding straight inside. Dang. However, at this time, 5-phase mountain shone, immediately firing 5 streaks of immortal light, making the bronze palace tremble intensely. The elder inside the immortal palace was also shaken, his body full of cracks, spraying out large mouthfuls of blood from his mouth. Chi. At the same time, the everlasting sword core in Sherhouse's hands that had been neglected released brilliant light, firing a streak of sword radiance, actually tearing through the elder's body protection energy, piercing him, making him release a miserable scream. You all." He suddenly turned around, glaring furiously at him. It was because he knew that the two supreme beings secretly controlled the divine sword, seriously injuring him. This injury was too severe, injuring his foundation. However, things didn't end here. Right at this time, he sensed a bone-piercing killing intent. Ho! He released a furious roar, symbols surging around his body, flames raging. He avoided a disaster. It was because the secret techniques the two supreme beings released earlier tangled about him, some of the true force not scattered yet, attached to his bones. Now they actually erupted, turning into a divine sword, about to hack apart his body. Pooh! In that instant, he protected his vital areas, but his arms fell over, and then exploded into a bloody mist. Like a lizard who cut its own tail, he used this to preserve his life. This really was too humiliating, his current condition too terrible. At the very least, for a supreme being, this was intolerable shame. He actually suffered this type of disaster. Dang! The entrance of the bronze Immortal Palace closed tightly, preventing outsiders from looking in. Immortal Palace's elder was furious. He was but a supreme being, yet he was actually humiliated like this. How could this be endured? Ancient ancestor, if your condition isn't too terrible, please make an appearance. Immortal Palace's elder said with a low voice, and then he chanted a type of ancient scripture. He was calling out, communicating with Immortal Palace's foundation. There was a ruined immortal there. His true body was sleeping, but there was a will imprint that awakened, sensing everything in the outside world. Not long ago, the decree that was released was precisely passed down by it. Dong. In this world, it was as if an immortal drum sounded, shaking up the 3,000 provinces. It was as if a glorious divine hall appeared, about to enter this world, as if millions of heavenly soldiers were shouting. In that instant, in a certain place within the 3,000 provinces, immortal light surged. Auspicious brilliance shot out in endless streaks. A wave of immortal Tao aura covered heaven and earth, rushing into the skies. The ruined immortal is making an appearance. In that instant, even the sect masters were all shocked, shaking in fear. Someone said this with a trembling voice. The ruined immortal was coming out. This was too shocking. A will rushed into the heavens, immortal Tao light splendor shining upon the world, leaving all under the heavens shocked. Even for ordinary creatures, who would have thought that there were still true immortals in this world? Even a few giants only recently heard that Immortal Palace had a dormant ruined immortal. He had always remained in seclusion, only today was this truly confirmed. It was first the law decree that appeared. Then, immortal splendor split the heavens, the noises as if they came from the drums of heaven. This was caused by the movement of a ruined immortal. He was reviving, shaking the sun, moon, and stars. Right now, all life trembled, as if the judgment day of heaven and earth arrived, the entire great era about to head towards its end. This was precisely immortal Tao might. For many people in the 3,000 provinces, they had never experienced this before. Who would have thought that they could see an immortal in this life? Hong Long. After one final tremble, that pressure scattered. At the very least, for normal people, it was only an instant of absent-mindedness, and then everything returned to normal. It was as if a volcano erupted, and then everything vanished. For the most powerful cultivators, this type of feeling of pressure instead increased. They knew that something major really did happen. The ruined immortal was making a move, approaching, about to head to Qin clan's homeland. This isn't just a threat, not just words, he really is coming, a sect master shouted. There was nothing more terrifying than this. A true immortal was coming to attack. Who could contend against him? Of course, there were some who were happy, the inheritances that were against Sure Hao. They immediately became excited, great waves stirring within them. Quite a few people clenched their fists. Now, normal creatures couldn't sense that wave of energy anymore. Only those at the very peak could sense that an absolute monster was approaching. The ruined immortal was making an appearance. This was world-shaking. However, he concealed his immortal Tao aura, not letting it leak out, because his condition was poor. Back then, he was beaten into ruin. No amount of immortal Tao power could be randomly wasted. At the same time, he didn't wish to act ostentatiously, disturb the 3,000 provinces. At his level, what he sensed was the great Tao, what he cared about was karma. If everyone in the 3,000 provinces were frightened by his appearance, it would likely produce some variables that might disturb the order of heaven and earth. This type of restraint didn't escape Immortal Qin, Sure Hao, and the others' detection. It was because the ruined immortal didn't ignore them, but rather came precisely for them. The ruined immortal was too powerful. A single movement would stretch across several provinces. Speed too fast, exceeding one's imagination. Supreme beings could sense it, the other powerful figures could also sense it. Even Sure Hao could sense how powerful the energy was, and also how great it was. It was as if a will appeared in this great universe, descending from outer space, sweeping through the entire world. No one its match. Hee ha ha! A laughter sounded from within the bronze palace. It was a bit cold, even more so a bit ear-piercing, at the same time extremely mad. This came from Immortal Palace's elder. Even though he shut himself off in the copper artifact, he could still sense that the ruined immortal was approaching, about to enter this place. How could this be? Wasn't it said that the ruined immortal was dying, unable to leave that place of rest at all? Yet he actually appeared. Someone said quietly, one of 3,000 provinces giants. He understood some inner details. He wasn't the only one. There were others, even the two supreme beings who came from the 9 heavens were stunned. This didn't make any sense. How could the ruined immortal walk out of that ancient land? Immortal Qin's face became grave. This indeed exceeded his predictions. He never thought that there would be such terrifying consequences. By offending Immortal Palace, a ruined immortal would come out? Just how terrifying of a thing was this? In the future, who dared provoke them? Who dared contend against them? All of you are going to die. Not a single one of you will be able to escape. Inside the bronze palace covered in rust, that elder's ice-cold voice sounded. He now calmed down. It was because he knew that even if this place had more than one supreme being, they couldn't defeat a true immortal. When the time came, whoever dared take action, that person would be wiped out, all of them swept through. Today was destined to be a day when Immortal Palace would display their power. It was coming closer. A war chariot drove over, speeding along, tearing apart the sky dome, crushing time, penetrating space, crushing all things in this world. It carried chaotic energy, arriving in this province. Hung Long. 8 heavenly horses rushed over, treading on the heavens, every single one of them covered with dragon scales and a long single horn on their heads. A pair of wings extended out from their ribs, shining brilliantly like those of phoenixes. This was a group of aloof and transcendent divine beasts. They pulled a silver-colored war chariot, now approaching. The heavenly horses were of all different forms, some closer to a dragon, some like lions, some like horse beasts, but everyone knew that these creatures were rare treasures. Even in the ancient times, the most dazzling era, these creatures were extremely rare. It was rumored that true pure-blooded heavenly horses served as mounts for the most powerful. They could move while treading on stars, their speeds too fast. It was to the extent where there were even rumors that in the ancient realm where immortals lived, the heavenly horses were indispensable vicious beasts, important mounts. Formidable, Immortal Palace's backing really is too great, actually having 8 heavenly horses. They have never been shown to the world before. Everyone sighed with astonishment, greatly shaken up inside. Hung Long. Then the 8 ancient beasts rushed over. The skies cracked, a powerful aura covering the world. Outside Qin clan's mountain gate, many cultivators from different clans trembled. In that instant, pudong sounds rang out continuously. Many people fell weak onto the ground, unable to endure that pressure. Moreover, this was still under the situation where the ruined immortal restrained his aura. He sat inside the silver war chariot, not circulating immortal light. Otherwise, everyone might begin shaking. When the 8 heavenly horses stopped, their hooves stopping in the air, this place collapsed. This type of scene was unimaginable. 8 heavenly horses, their bodies covered in green scales, some scarlet red like blood, one like a flood dragon, another spreading its wings like a true phoenix, powerful to the extreme. Every single one of them stood proudly like great mountains, leaving everyone shaken, only able to look up towards them. The mounts of true immortals are too terrifying. Everyone was shivering in fear. It was because even now, they couldn't see through those 8 creatures' cultivation levels. The heavenly horses moved through the skies, looking down on all life. The heavenly horses were giant, a single hoof enough to crush mountain peaks, all of them incomparably grand and majestic. The expressions in their eyes were cold, like exceptional experts as they stood there proudly. Behind them, the silver war chariot was extremely massive, and also extremely ancient, carrying an ancient meaning, bearing the glorious battle accomplishments of the past. This was a war chariot that had experienced immortal ancient great battles. There were all types of mottled traces that recorded the past blood and flames, many blade marks and arrow holes on its surface. Sure how Immortal Qin and the others all shook inwardly, some of them knowing that the reason why the immortal could come out might be related to this chariot. It could nurture and protect the ruined body and primordial spirit. Dang! The entrance to the bronze palace opened. That elder came out, kneeling in the void, kowtowing towards that war chariot, piously displaying great respect. "I pay my respects to the old ancestor," he said with a trembling voice. "Huang, why are you not coming here yet?" A cold voice sounded from inside the ancient war chariot, a bit aged, but extremely intimidating. The voice was calm, but it made everyone tremble endlessly. This was a ruined immortal who was speaking, ordering a later generation youngster. Xianxia sighed. Who would have thought that this type of existence really would appear, coming just for him? This time, things really didn't look good. When a true immortal descends, all life will bow down. Yet you are this daring, actually not showing respect. Immortal Palace's elder shouted out. Then, he stared at Xianxia, shouting, "Kneel and crawl over." Everyone broke out into a cold shiver. There were many experts who quickly kneeled, seriously showing respect. Even a few sect masters lowered their heads, also bowing. This really was the power of a ruined immortal. Even if they didn't take action, they could still look down on the world, threaten the 3,000 provinces. The ruined immortal didn't say anything. That silver war chariot carried an imperishable aura, releasing some mist that surrounded that region, making this area of the world tremble slightly. His aura was too powerful. Even if his immortal energy was restrained, it could still make even the great Tao tremble, command the universe, threaten the skies above and earth below. During this process, the ruined immortal didn't speak further, just sitting inside the war chariot, waiting for Xianxia to come and bow down. In that instant, the world became quiet. No one dared utter a word, all of them on the ground, unknown just how many creatures were kneeling. Not a single creature was weak, all of them from different sects, belonged to different clans. However, they all lowered their heads, not daring to look into the sky. They didn't even dare sneak a look at the heavenly horses, all of them kowtowing below the sky. The 8 heavenly horses all had strong physiques, their muscles taut like steel, dragon scales covering their bodies densely. They hovered in midair, not moving at all, also receiving everyone's worship. Xianxia didn't move, quietly standing in place. He was now in great danger. How was he supposed to deal with this situation? Don't know the difference between life and death? You aren't going to pay your respects to a true immortal? This is a clan-eradicating offense. Immortal Palace's elder shouted. Right now, who dared say anything? How many people dared step out? When faced with a powerful ruined immortal, there was not a single being here who could match his strength. They all shivered in fear, many of them kneeling on the ground, not daring to speak out. Even the 2 supreme beings from the 9 heavens vanished without a trace. Those 2 didn't persist with this, because they knew that appearing now to save Xianxia was meaningless. They would only be throwing their lives away too. Only by withdrawing into the 9 heavens could they escape this disaster. They had previously heard that the 3,000 provinces ruined immortals under normal situations wouldn't leave their homes, always remaining dormant. The first reason was because their bodies were ruined, difficult to move around. Second was that the 9 heavens had life-restricted regions, intimidating them. For the ruined immortal, if nothing unexpected happened, before his body completely healed, he normally wouldn't head to the 9 heavens. Clan-eradicating offense? By what right do you all have to declare this? Why do I have to pay my respects? Xianxia said coldly, extremely cold, and also extremely calm, not revealing panic or fear. This left everyone shocked. He still dared speak out? This was a true immortal. Xianxia actually spoke with such a domineering tone, not bowing down. You really are quite something, daring to say these words even when faced with an unmatched being. Immortal Palace's elder's voice was extremely cold. The entire world knows that when meeting a true immortal, one must bow down. These are our predecessors, unmatched beings, our virtuous seniors who previously defended our world. They have established incomparable contributions. You are ignorant and arrogant, actually daring to go against the Great One, brazen and disrespectful. Do you wish to go against the entire world? These words erupted like thunder through this place, shaking up heaven and earth. He was threatening Xianxia. Virtuous predecessor? Great contributions. Xianxia didn't seem affected at all, instead laughing loudly. his tone also carrying a bit of disappointment and frustration. Those who have established great contributions have all died, some before Immortal Ancient, some killed in this great era, bones buried in desolate border. For a coward like him who doesn't dare fight, why is there any reason to respect him? Do you know what you are saying? Immortal Palace's elder berated, eyes like lightning, cold and frigid. He wanted to suppress sure how. Of course I know. Could it be that what I am saying aren't facts? Sure how didn't feel fear, raising his head and saying, if you really dared risk life and limb, fight against the other side, there wouldn't be any ruined immortals left. Nothing more than stirring up internal strife. I previously heard that in the Battle of Immortal Ancient, the Kuanpeng was heavily injured, suffering the backstab of someone from this great era. It should be the world of a ruined immortal, right? Perhaps the reason why he is ruined is precisely because of the Kuanpeng. Sure how really went for broke, daring to say anything, even if he was facing the ruined immortal right now. Below, many people's faces became pale, kneeling on the ground, not daring to move. This was just a youngster, yet he actually dared to jab at a ruined immortal's shortcomings like this. Protect this world? I heard that the so-called ruined immortal previously convicted the descendants of those with the greatest contributions with crime. Now that the kings have passed on, does he feel like he can rule over the world himself now? This type of person is someone deserving of respect? During the Battle of Desolate Border, where was he? Nowhere to be seen. Yet now, when the world is at peace, you dare come out tyrannically abuse others. This true immortal really is something. This type of unmatched being, it is one thing if he isn't brought up. I would rather pay my respects to the obscure and unknown old soldiers in Desolate Border. Sure how released a relentless barrage of criticism, completely speaking his mind, leaving everyone shaken. It wasn't that they didn't know he was daring, but he actually ridiculed a ruined immortal right in front of his face, leaving everyone stupefied. It seemed like he didn't want his life at all. Shut your mouth. Immortal Palace's elder cut him off, loudly berating him, scared that he would say any more. These words that didn't care about the consequences at all made even his face go pale. However, the creature in the silver carriage was extremely calm, not showing anger, instead indifferent like a fossil, not the slightest emotional fluctuations to be seen. Younger generation, what do you understand? A true immortal can overlook endless ages. What he is considering is the greater situation. How could his thoughts be something an insignificant person like you with limited thoughts could understand? Don't try to guess at the mind of an immortal with your own. Immortal Palace's elder felt a great headache, shouting out here, wishing to neutralize this situation, scared that the true immortal might also involve him out of anger. There is no need to say too much. Inside the silver war chariot, that creature spoke out, stopping Immortal Palace's elder. Then he transmitted sound to Sure How, saying, "Come and meet me." The voice was extremely calm, but it carried unquestionable dignity. This was a type of pressure that made one's mind tremble, made all bow their heads, even gods kowtow, not daring to go against him. Sure How felt as if he was struck by lightning. Even though he wasn't attacked, it still felt as if his soul was going to explode. This was the intimidation of a ruined immortal. The powerful aura leaked out, pouring outwards. If he dared go against it, it would crush him, a great danger descending. Are you really going to force me? Sure How said to himself. He wouldn't cower. He already went for broke, about to use all of his methods, go all out here. It was because there was no room for compromise here at all. Even if he lowered his head, it wouldn't do anything. In the eyes of a true immortal, he was as weak as an infant. Without ascending into the immortal level, in those creatures' eyes, he was nothing more than an ant. My child! In the distance, Qin Yining cried out with a sobbing tone, shouting out. She really begun to panic, scared that Sure How would be killed, die before her eyes. Child, come back! Sure Yiling also shouted. He knew that if he faced the true immortal, no matter how formidable his oldest son was, he would still be far from enough. Right now, all they could hope for was that Sure How would return. Even if it was death, they would die together as a family. They were currently within Qin clan, not following the others out. It was because there was 5-phase mountain shining there, protecting the pure land below. You still aren't coming over and kneeling? Immortal Palace's elder shouted. Bullying others too far. Immortal Qin spoke. At the same time, he slapped his chest, that area shining, an expanse of scarlet multicolored light erupting, incomparably dazzling. And, forget about the others, even the ruined immortal in the silver war chariot revealed an expression of shock. The others were even more shocked. That blood was bright red like a diamond, releasing mysterious brilliance, incomparably resplendent. There wasn't much, but it dyed the heavens red, as if scarlet brilliance ignited the heavens. Immortal blood. Many people could tell that this wasn't normal blood, that it was immortal Tao blood. It carried rich immortal energy, as well as great power, surging in that place. Many people were shocked. How was Immortal Qin able to do this? What kind of background did he have? Hao's eyes contracted. He knew that this really was immortal blood, always sealed within Immortal Qin's body. Now he released it. Back then, Immortal Qin had obtained the immortal bone, nurturing it in his body, becoming one with it, creating immortal Tao true blood. But he had no way of controlling this blood. Moreover, he deliberately sealed it, always hiding it in his body. Now he moved, scattering the immortal blood on 5-phase mountain, helping it undo its seal. Hao sensed that there were still more mysteries on Immortal Qin, that he didn't tell him everything. When the immortal blood scattered on 5-phase mountain, this place surged with chaotic energy, gods weeping and devils howling. There were figures everywhere, the scene shocking to the extreme. There were just too many natural gods and devils on 5-phase mountain, all of them weeping and howling, as if they were offering sacrifices to the end of a great age, but also grateful for a chance at revival. In that instant, the sky dome cracked apart, heaven and earth thrown into turmoil. Nearby, all of the creatures were horrified, their souls shaking. They were all scared stiff. What was Immortal Qin doing? Why did that 5-phase mountain become so terrifying? There were 8 heavenly horses, their bodies covered in dragon scales, all of them robust and powerful. All of them were looking down on everything below before, yet now they all backed up in alarm. The heavenly horses roared out, as if making heaven and earth collapse. Together with the howling and weeping of gods and devils, this truly was a terrifying scene. This place was in chaos, this sight created by 5-phase mountain leaving every single expert in horror. Dong! Suddenly, that immortal mountain swirling with 5-colored brilliance shook greatly. All of the natural gods and devils disappeared, the mist scattering. What remained on the mountain itself were only dried bones. The bones of natural gods. There were too many piled up, countless in number. They actually appeared, carried by the massive 5-phase mountain. This was like a whole world. There were endless creatures, all of them buried there. The immortal blood was completely absorbed by 5-phase mountain. On that mountain, a sigh resounded, and then there was another figure there. It was extremely indistinct, but it was definitely real, seated on top. What was going on? Everyone was stupefied, chills running down their backs. Tao brother, is there a need to be so overbearing? On 5-phase mountain, that creature looked towards the silver war chariot, actually speaking these words. This left all of the cultivators speechless. Did an unimaginable existence just appear? There was a mortal mist swirling about there, undying aura spreading. Needless to say, this was an unrivaled existence. Even Hao was shocked. Was this the true spirit 5-phase mountain produced? No matter how he looked at it, it seemed much more powerful than the artifact spirit from before. If the past 5-phase mountain was an infant, then now that the true spirit appeared, it was a mature adult. Immortal Qin really could undo the seal? Neither of us are in the mundane world, Tao friend. Why is there a need to tread through muddled water? After a momentary silence, this voice sounded from within the silver war chariot. This time, everyone knew that the existence on 5-phase mountain really wasn't simple, making the true immortal feel restraining fear. Otherwise, there was no need for the ruined immortal to say anything, just directly suppressing it was enough. Immortal Qin's face paled slightly, but it wasn't because anything bad happened to his body. He backed up, leaving the center of the battlefield. Moreover, he called out to Shi Hao, having him follow him. He cannot leave. That existence from inside the silver war chariot spoke. It was still extremely calm, but his undefiable intent was clear, which was that he was going to detain Shi Hao. Dao friend, I wish to protect this person. On 5-Phase Mountain that existence spoke. I knew you were here, which was why I didn't immediately punish him. However, the fact that you are stopping me like this now, shouldn't there be a reason? The ruined immortal actually said these words. There is great karma involved, but I cannot speak in detail. That individual on 5-Phase Mountain said. Is that so? This is the first time you've awakened after endless years. What kind of karma could you share with him? The ruined immortal's voice became a bit cold. After a slight pause, he continued. Perhaps there might be a great karma between him and me in the future, which I need to sever early. Doing this is the same as breaking my karma. 5-Phase Mountain's existence didn't cower. Since Dao friend insists, then it truly is regrettable. However, I must remind you that this does not only involve me, but rather some other Dao friends. Are you really going to stand in my way? The voice from the silver war chariot became more and more cold. Towards Shi Hao and the others, he could remain unperturbed, but towards this unfathomable and terrifying existence, the ruined immortal could no longer face him calmly. There were others? He actually spoke like this. According to normal reasoning, that was definitely a ruined immortal. At the very least, he shouldn't be weaker than himself. Shi Hao's mind sunk. The most troublesome things had occurred. He was stroking an item. This was what Great Elder left him. Did he truly have to waste it here? He didn't even use it in Desolate Border, yet he was going to use it in the 3,000 provinces? Shi Hao's eyes were ice cold, extremely disgusted with Immortal Palace's people, hating the ruined immortal bitterly. There are others who share this view? However, I still wish to stop you. On 5-Phase Mountain, that individual still didn't shrink back. Dao friend, think things thrice over. On the silver war chariot, the ruined immortal's voice was cold. Moreover, right at this time his war chariot moved, slowly approaching. The 8 heavenly horses' hooves were all extremely large. They crushed the sky dome, the noises ear-splitting. At this time, the mist around the silver war chariot's surroundings scattered, things becoming more and more terrifying, truly intimidating. Even though my condition isn't great, I do not fear immortal affairs. Back then, what kind of great battles hadn't I experienced? The ruined immortal continued. On the war chariot, there were many traces, representing the extreme glory of the past. At this moment, Shi Hao's pupils rapidly contracted. He saw that the side of the war chariot was torn open, ripped off by someone and smashed through. The traces left behind were too clear. At the same time, he sensed wisps of a familiar great Dao aura. Kuan-Peng claw marks. Correct, he was confident that the damage left on the war chariot was left by Kuan-Peng claws. Back then, an incredibly intense battle had happened. Sure enough, this true immortal had previously taken action against a seriously injured and dying Kuan-Peng, the two fighting a great battle. In that case, it seems like there can only be a battle. 5-Phase Mountain's existence said, not shaken, attitude unchanged. Dao friend is too stubborn. The silver war chariot shook, releasing ripples, a terrifying aura rippling out. A wave of scripture sounds rang out, turning into waves, brilliant and dazzling as they rushed towards a certain direction. Moreover, a reply was quickly obtained. Walala! A law decree flew over fast to the extreme. It was too fierce, carrying a terrifying aura. Moreover, it was accompanied by a simple and ancient magical artifact, an ancient battle axe. This weapon was a bit damaged, not complete, but it released an extreme Dao pressure, exceeding the power permitted by this world. Primal chaos surged. The ancient axe and the decree rose and fell at the same time, as if they were going to create a new heaven and earth, shocking all creatures. Those who didn't obtain 5-Phase Mountain's protection, regardless of how great their cultivation levels were, fell weak onto the ground, their bodies shaking uncontrollably. Moreover, the sun, moon, and stars in the skies were also shaking, all of them about to fall from the heavens. Xianxia clenched his fists, not knowing whether he should feel anger or grief. There were more than a single ruined immortal in the 3,000 provinces after all, and now they actually showed themselves one after another. Back then, if they were willing to step out and fight in desolate border, Great Elder Meng Tianzheng wouldn't have died in battle. He missed Great Elder, feeling great grief. Great Elder's death was too unfortunate. He really wished he could see him alive again, to return with power defying the heavens, scare these ruined immortals to death. Dao friend, are you really going to fight? On that decree, immortal text shone, releasing blazing light, releasing a voice in this way. If I do not fight, then it will harm a great karma of mine. You all are forcing me. The existence on Five-Phase Mountain seemed to be a bit angered, his voice extremely cold. We do not want to force you either, but we have no other choice. If not this, both of us can take a step back. I will leave him with his life, but he cannot be left unpunished. The ruined immortal spoke from within the silver war chariot. He felt great apprehension, not willing to truly fight. It was because the effects of this would be too great. A battle between immortal Dao existences would easily destroy stellar seas. Just too miserable. With his current condition, he might even die. Of course, he had the numbers advantage on his side. If they joined together, they could suppress their opponent. Only the price was too great, hard to make this choice. If I allow you to harm his Dao fruit, it will just be like killing him. What is the difference? The creature on Five-Phase Mountain said coldly. Things actually developed to this extent. Immortal Dao creatures were confronting each other. How about this? I will just flick my finger, I won't kill him, and I will even permit Dao friend to help him. If his luck isn't good and cannot receive it, then it can only be said that this world wants him dead. The creature in the war chariot said. Xianxia was furious, his hair flying about in a somewhat messy manner. What did the ruined immortal treat him as? If he was an immortal, he would definitely kill this ruined immortal with just a finger. Xianxia clenched his fists, even his joints turning pale. It was because the ruined immortal was going too far. It was clear that the ruined immortal didn't attach much importance to him at all. When deciding his life or death, he wasn't even given a look, instead only discussing with Five-Phase Mountain's existence. The silver war chariot stopped in front of Five-Phase Mountain, curtains long raised. The ruined immortal faced this existence extremely carefully. This is my bottom line. If you dare go against it and contradict me, then you will naturally have to pay the price. Leaving him with his life can already be considered extremely benevolent. Inside the war chariot, the ruined immortal's voice sounded. In the distance, the decree shone, an ancient axe rumbling, representing the will of a ruined immortal. Chong. Right at this time, the bronze palace shrunk. There was a lot of green rust on it, making it look extremely old. It turned into the size of a fist, entering the silver war chariot, appearing in the ruined immortal's palm. The atmosphere was incredibly tense. One more word of conflict and a great battle would erupt. It was because while the two sides confronted each other, even though they didn't take action all this time, they all had their own bottom lines. Now they were being tested. If neither of them were willing to back up, unwilling to compromise, then a fight was the only result. Let's have a look then. The creature on Five-Phase Mountain spoke. The 8 heavenly horses cried out, their giant hooves crushing the void. They pulled the silver war chariot into the distance. A great golden path extended out from Five-Phase Mountain, directly supporting Xianxia, carrying him until he was on top of Five-Phase Mountain, arriving near that existence. Xianxia didn't resist, because Five-Phase Mountain's individual wanted to protect him, the attitude completely different from the ruined immortals. The creature on Five-Phase Mountain was inwardly shocked. He activated his immortal eyes. When he grabbed Xianxia, he sensed something because they were too close. There were some things that couldn't escape the eyes of these people. There was a flame laying dormant within Xiao's body. Even though that flame was dispersed, hidden in his body, it was still discovered by this creature. When someone of this level grabbed a cultivator in the mortal Dao domain, they could naturally completely see through that individual's secrets. However, the existence on 5-Phase Mountain was only inwardly shocked, not revealing anything or behaving ostentatiously. He looked extremely calm, completely unperturbed. He secretly transmitted sound, communicating with Sure Hao. The ruined immortal feels some restraining fear against me. He won't kill you, but he wishes to cripple you. Sure Hao nodded when he heard this, expressing that he knew. However, that doesn't mean there isn't any chance to turn things around. You have a flame within you. If I work with you, perhaps it can help you avoid this disaster. That creature said. Sure Hao sighed. If a true immortal wanted to take action, how could it be that easy to escape from? It was definitely going to be a life and death disaster. If a ruined immortal's palm slapped over, even if 5-Phase Mountain's existence helped him resist it, he still might explode between the two great experts, turn into a blast of bloody mist. 5-Phase Mountain's existence looked over towards where the ruined immortal was. Even if I lend him a helping hand to stop your attack, he still wouldn't be able to take it. There is no chance for him to live. I already said that I won't kill him, just display a move, guaranteed to leave him with his life. The ruined immortal's voice sounded from within the silver war chariot. All right then. I will provide him with a divine barrier. The rest will be up to fate. 5-Phase Mountain's creature said. Hong Long. He took action. A barrier of light surrounded Sure Hao's body. It was like a resplendent divine ring, making his entire body brilliant, this place dazzling. Remember what you said. You cannot kill him. 5-Phase Mountain's creature gave one last warning. All right, however, you do not need to worry. The ruined immortal replied. During this process, Sure Hao didn't say a word, remaining quiet the entire time. He was brought down from 5-Phase Mountain, landing in the void, extremely calm. His strength was less than he wished, so what could he say? A ruined immortal came to attack him. He now experienced just how insignificant of a person he was. Only by stepping into the immortal Dao domain was it enough. However, that was easier said than done. Hee. The ruined immortal laughed, extremely calm and easygoing. However, in Sure Hao's ears it was extremely ear-piercing. The ruined immortal was about to take action, just too willful and full of disdain. One could sense from his laughter alone that he didn't attach any importance to Sure Hao at all. In the eyes of a ruined immortal, now that he took action, that was just like eliminating a kitten or a puppy. Right now, the silver war chariot floated up. A silver arm reached out from within, wrapped in battle armor. This was the first time he showed himself. That was a human arm. He only lightly flicked his finger, and then silver light erupted, illuminating the world beyond, shaking up this world. Powerful waves stirred about, but it then quickly restrained itself. There was only a streak of flowing silver light that swept towards Sure Hao, about to enter his body. Chong! Outside the surface of Sure Hao's body, the barrier flickered. This was created by 5-Phase Mountain's creature, protecting Sure Hao, preventing him from being corroded. However, soon afterwards, the expression of 5-Phase Mountain's creature changed, becoming extremely shocked. Sure Hao's expression also changed. This was just the beginning, yet the body-protecting barrier was already about to be penetrated. Everything the individual on 5-Phase Mountain arranged lost effectiveness. Hong Long. Immediately afterwards, the brilliant divine ring around Sure Hao's body shook intensely, releasing even more dazzling brilliance. This was immortal Dao power, yet it was actually being corroded. However, in the end, that screen of light didn't fall apart either. It was just a strand of silver light, yet it already broke inside, completely impossible to defend against. A strand of hidden light entered Sure Hao, making his body shake intensely. At the same time, 5-Phase Mountain's creature also sensed something, becoming stupefied, and then stunned. Not even he foresaw this type of result. It was because in his eyes, with his body-protecting barrier, it should be enough to stop the other side's methods. Even if it truly broke in, that youngster's body had secrets as well, perhaps able to resist. However, his face now changed, become indignant, carrying a type of worry. as well as shock. It's actually that thing. The past irresolvable curse. Five-phase mountain's creature spoke. He felt a feeling of bleakness, as well as a type of helplessness. This type of curse was too terrifying. Immortal breaking curse, it has already disappeared for so long. It could actually appear in this world again. Five-phase mountain's existence side. There was nothing he could do. Immortal breaking curse was a curse that could break down even immortals. That meant that once one suffered from it, there was no way of getting rid of it. It was extremely ruthless. Once one was cursed, their cultivation would be destroyed. Magic force slowly dissolved into nothingness, able to directly cripple even a true immortal, eventually turn them into immortal. That was why when this curse was mentioned, all those who knew about it couldn't help but feel shock. Even in Immortal Ancient Great Era, this curse left one in fear. However, it rarely appeared. Everyone already thought that it was lost in inheritance in this great era. Who would have thought that the ruined immortal before their eyes could display it? You are too vicious, Five-phase mountain's existence said, shaking his head. He turned into a streak of light, disappearing into the mountain. It was because he now felt that everything was over. This type of curse disregarded magical force, didn't fear immortal Tao symbols. It could pierce through everything, which was why the barrier he helped Xianxia set up immediately lost effectiveness. In the past, perhaps only an immortal king could resist this type of curse. Otherwise, there was no hope, all efforts meaningless. Hey, you still have a month of time, you should just properly enjoy your time as a cultivator. In the future, if you want to overlook beautiful mountains and rivers, that might be too difficult. The ruined immortal spoke. It was just that simple, a bit sinister and cold. It ended just like that. This conclusion, for Xianxia, was too cruel. Yet these words were spoken so calmly by the ruined immortal, a type of undisguised disdain, even more so ruthlessly beating him down. Everyone here became stunned. Did things end just like that? They thought that there would be an extremely great battle, a clash between Five-Phase Mountain and the ruined immortal, but who would have thought that in that instant, everything ended? Huang, what happened to him? Everyone looked at the skies in shock, all of them confused. It was because for most people they never heard of the immortal breaking curse at all, not knowing what it was, what kind of cruel and terrifying result it would produce. Immortal breaking curse, from past until now, those who had a chance to taste it really aren't many. Not far out, the decree next to the ancient axe shone, symbols lighting up one after another. This was another ruined immortal's voice. From today forth, there will be no more Huang. He is finished, his life done for, Tao Foundation crippled. In a few months, he will completely return to being immortal. Immortal Palace's elder roared with laughter. His voice was extremely loud, deafening like thunder, feeling extremely carefree. Now that a ruined immortal came into this world, who could contend against him? Immortal breaking curse. Even true immortals would be crippled, becoming mortals, let alone you. Everyone finally knew what was going to happen, all of them incredibly shocked. Huang was crippled, from here on out becoming the most ordinary human. Everyone was horrified, and then they became quiet. This was definitely a cruel punishment, even more terrifying than killing Huang. Currently, who didn't know about his heaven-warping talent? He was a 20-something-year-old self-release realm cultivator who swept through the world. Not even many in the older generation able to contend against him. He already completely shattered the records, creating new ones of his own. There were no self-release realm cultivators younger than him. This type of heaven-warping genius, he wasn't killed, but instead had his cultivation crippled, sinking into nothingness in this great age, letting him taste bitterness and torment. Just how cruel of a thing was this? No, child! Xianxia roared out, his eyes even becoming red, rushing over. My child! Qin Yining's hair was a mess, rushing into the heavens, eyes full of tears. They immediately hugged Xianxia, full of worry and fear, as well as endless resentment. Just how much trouble and misfortune did their oldest son have to face? He had experienced too much pain and suffering already, and now, in the end, he was going to fall like this? I'm going to fight you to the death! Xianxia roared out in anger, eyes blood red, about to rush out and stake it all against the ruined immortal. Pong! Shurhao grabbed him, biting his lower lip, saying, "Don't!" He only said this word, not saying any more. He didn't want to look at Immortal Palace's people anymore, his knuckles white from clenching. He could fight Immortal Palace to the death, but he couldn't let his parents fall into danger, give up their lives for no reason. "Youngster, you shouldn't have thought of yourself so highly. This world is so great. How could it tolerate your ignorance? There are some rules that must be respected." A voice sounded from the shining decree, and then it rushed into the sky with the ancient axe, accompanied by immortal mist. The void was ripped apart and then they disappeared just like that. That voice was extremely calm, almost indifferent, but in the ears of Shurhao's family, it was ear-piercing, cold, and ruthless, even more so full of contempt. It was clearly the ruined immortal who attacked him, took the initiative to attack, yet in the end, his words made Shurhao seem so lowly, saying that he didn't understand the depths of heaven and earth. How could the Shur family not be furious? It was all because this was a ruined immortal, high up above, able to suppress and overlook all things, which was why they could condemn others as they wished. Yet what could they do about it? Qin Yining also wanted to throw herself out, but her arm was also gripped by Shurhao. Immortal Palace's ruined immortal was still there. They would only be like moths to a flame. "Youngster, do what you can with your remaining life." Inside the silver war chariot, that ruined immortal actually spoke like this. Repeating himself like this really was absolutely ear-piercing, truly making one feel as if they were being ridiculed. Hong Long. The 8 heavenly horses raised their heads, crushing the skies with their hooves, all of the stars in outer space shaking. He was going to leave, preparing to return to Immortal Palace. However, before leaving, he stared at the everlasting sword core in Shurhao's hands, as well as the iron blood war banner fluttering on the side. A streak of immortal light flew over, about to seize them. Hong! Right at this moment, the 5-phase mountain creature moved, descending from above, stopping in between, cutting off the connection between him and Shurhao, moreover releasing a tremendous noise. There was already an agreement that it would only be one strike. Is this still not enough? His voice was extremely cold. He-hey. The 8 heavenly horses pulled the silver war chariot into the distance, rumbling noise sounding as their hooves treaded on the skies. They turned into lightning, tearing open space, disappearing from this place. Heaven-warping genius? From today forth, he will only be trash. Immortal Palace's elder roared with laughter. He also turned around, leaving like this. "You all bully others too far. Too far." Qin Yining cried. She really felt grief for her son. This type of conclusion was difficult for her to accept. Hong. When the ruined immortal left, this place erupted with noise. Everyone couldn't believe that Huang was crippled. Qi. 5-phase mountain shone, directly landing in the depths of Qin clan, thus entering seclusion. Sigh. Immortal Qin walked over, sighing. He looked at Shurhao, his expression complicated. Who would have thought that this would be the ending? "Big bro." Qin Hao cried out, supporting Shurhao. "Heavens, it really happened. This world will no longer have a Huang. His cultivation has been destroyed by a true immortal, thus becoming immortal, no hope of ever becoming a heaven-warping divine being. This is too shocking. This is Huang we are talking about, someone who established all types of records, a legend of this great era's cultivation history. Yet in the end, he met this type of miserable end. This place erupted with noise, the voices noisy. Everyone discussed among themselves, speaking out because what happened was too shocking. Some people felt pity for Shurhao. He had just left the battlefield, yet he ended up being crippled by people on the same side. He fought while bathed in blood, fighting a great battle in desolate border, establishing glorious contributions. All those who participated in that battle and the clans who went to Imperial Pass spoke well of him. Yet now, a hero like him met the end of the road, falling at this step. Many people were furious, sighing for his sake, feeling injustice. Even though they feared the ruined immortal, Everyone was screaming that the heavens were unfair inside. Ruined immortal, he didn't even dare fight in desolate border. What reason is there to respect him? Too hateful, someone said quietly. However, his friend tugged at his sleeves, reminding him not to speak randomly. After all, Huang was a living example. If you stood on the wrong side, speaking incorrectly, then there might be a great disaster. There were some who sympathized with Shi Hao. This type of situation left him too wronged. Not fair at all. Of course, there were those who laughed as well, feeling extremely carefree and happy, extremely excited. For example, demonic sunflower garden, heavenly country and underworld Earth's people. When they saw this result, they all revealed faint smiles. This was the same as getting rid of their future worry. Ha! Huang, you've finally been crippled. So such a day really did come. Finally, someone roared with laughter, couldn't help but shout out. From today forth, there will no longer be any Huang, only an ordinary mortal human. A few people said, all of them cultivators from clans who came with great gifts, wishing to get closer to Huang. Father, we are going to leave just like this? A green-clothed young lady asked, carrying some hesitation. Naturally, don't tell me you still want to stay behind? Did you think that arranged marriage with Stone Clan I was real? Even if it is him, now that he is crippled, he can't threaten us anymore. A sect master said. Many people looked over because these sect masters really didn't give him any face. Even though their voices weren't loud, there were still some people who heard them. Shi Hao raised his head, already looking in that direction. This was a middle-aged man, black hair scattered about, eyes bright, his aura rather impressive. Shi Hao had some impression of him. This was Jade Splendor Sect's sect master. At first, they were extremely friendly, wishing to be connected to Stone Clan through marriage. It was also precisely because he took the lead that some inheritances followed suit, making the atmosphere rather enthusiastic, many people smiling while saying they wanted to be connected to Stone Clan. At the middle-aged man's side was a green-clothed young lady, quiet and exquisite, indeed quite beautiful. Shi Hao still remembered that her name was Lu Zhu. Her manners could be considered outstanding. Child, we're leaving. Back then, we were still a bit worried that he would go crazy looking for trouble. But now, it seems like there isn't any need to be worried. Jade Splendor Sect Master said. His voice wasn't loud, but others could hear it. He didn't hide it, so Shi Hao's family could hear everything clearly. Shi Hao knew that this person bore ill intent. In reality, if not because they feared Shi Hao taking action, many inheritances wouldn't come to Immortal Mountain. Looking at it from this angle, it meant that these were precisely the ones who had conflict with Shi Hao before, either part of the group who ambushed him in spirit realm or targeted him in the real world, which was why they came to apologize. Now, this type of unexpected event happened, so their attitudes naturally changed. They were just like Jade Splendor Sect Master. Not long ago, he was still all smiles, extremely easygoing in Qin Clan's Great Hall, chatting with Shi Xiling and Qin Yining discussing marriage. Now, sure enough, he directly became hostile because Shi Hao was crippled. Moreover, when he thought back to how he was smiling, wishing to be connected with Stone Clan through marriage, he felt that he had been overly humble. He felt that his own dignity had been tarnished. A glorious sect master actually previously wanted to marry off his daughter to dissolve possible danger. Just thinking about this made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Hee. This really was an unexpected result. The will of heaven, ending up like this. Someone said while laughing, not hiding anything, instead swaggering off. We are leaving. Jade Splendor Sect Master also had a faint smile on his face, bringing his daughter Lu Zhu with him, rushing into the skies while stirring on precious artifacts. Right now, this place was noisy. Huang was crippled, falling into the realm of mortals. This was tremendous news. This place naturally couldn't calm down. There were some who felt regret for a genius like Shi Hao. There were others who sneered, feeling joy in his disaster. These were inheritances that previously opposed Shi Hao. They were extremely happy to see this scene. There were some who were indifferent, as this matter didn't concern them, just quietly watching from the side. Go. What is so interesting about a piece of trash? There were others who immediately spoke harshly. Just this direct. saying this in front of Sherhao's family, uttering such ear-piercing and nasty words. I think it's better to not say so much, the other side is already like this. This is but a heaven-warping genius. Yet in the end, his cultivation was ruined. It truly is pitiful. A woman said. However, this was definitely not sympathy, because she carried a smile full of contempt. This was definitely mockery and ridicule, carrying malice. Woo! I feel like there are some things that we haven't brought away. Forgot it in Qin clan. Right at this time, an elder-level figure spoke up, eyes flickering brilliantly, looking towards Sherhao's family. Right now, Qin Yining had already bitten through her red lips, eyes full of tears. Her oldest son really was pitiful, making her feel absolutely terrible. Meanwhile, these people were even throwing rocks at him while he was down, ridiculing him like this. This made her mood even worse. Dao brother, what did you leave behind in Qin clan? Someone said with a smile, playing along and asking like this. Some rare divine treasures. I forgot them in Qin clan's hall, that person said. It was clear that he was talking about those precious gifts from before. Some inheritances came to Qin clan to ease the relationship between themselves and Huang, so they naturally brought over great gifts. When he spoke like this, everyone understood. He wanted those treasures back. How could I have forgotten? I also left some things there. Right, I was in too much of a hurry. I actually forgot to bring back some things. A few people spoke up one after another, wanting those precious gifts. Could be said that their mouths and faces really changed quickly. Right, we also forgot some things. Jade Splendor Sect Master, who originally already brought his daughter into the skies, actually also spoke, moreover turning around and returning. Hang! Right at this time, Immortal Qin appeared again, walking out of the entrance, releasing a heavy cold snort. This place immediately became much quieter, no longer that noisy. A few people felt restraining fear. Even though they all knew Sherhao was crippled, they didn't dare attack Immortal Mountain. Just now, many of them just got a bit carried away. At this time, Immortal Qin's angry snort expressed his dissatisfaction, so they couldn't disregard this. Many of them began to lack confidence. It is what it is. If you don't return those things, they can just be gifted to that crippled Stone Clan disciple. Someone said, extremely hateful, tongue still so sharp at this juncture. Of course, while beating down Sherhao, it could still be putting themselves up. Quite a few people rushed up, preparing to leave. The ruined immortal said that I still had a month before I will be crippled. Did all of you forget this already? At this time, Sherhao suddenly spoke, his voice incredibly cold, eyes like lightning as they swept over everyone. You won't be able to live. Immortal Palace Supreme Being had said that the 3,000 provinces have rules. It will not permit your unbridledness. Someone spoke up. However, even more people's faces changed, starting to lack confidence and feel uneasy. It was because they truly almost forgot that Huang still had a month to go crazy. Hong! In that instant, Sherhao was extremely direct. He reached out his right hand. With a honglong noise, powerful winds swept out, the scene horrifying, as if an expanse of the star domain was going to be crushed. Ah! That person who used Immortal Palace as a crutch screamed miserably, struck by Sherhao. A streak of light flowed past. His body exploded, turning into a bloody mist, dying on the spot. You better not act recklessly. There were people who were immediately so scared their souls trembled. None of them thought that Huang would still be so vicious when things already reached this point, actually dared to take action like this. You and you all, Sherhao pointed out. I'll give you all 3 days' time to bring over 10 times the amount of great gifts as before, or else you all should know that I will pay you a visit. If you don't want to be slaughtered until blood flows like rivers, not a single piece of armor intact, then you all better play your part. Sherhao was extremely cold, raising his hand and pointing at those who took joy in his disaster, threatening them. These people's faces immediately went rigid. He wasn't crippled, still had a month left. Many of them broke out in cold sweat, feeling headaches one after the other. It was because just now they really had been too careless, thinking that Huang was already crippled. There were some who inwardly cursed, Why did they have to speak out, go so far with their words? All those who didn't speak harshly before weren't pointed out. Jade Splendor Sect Master's face was full of regret, extremely upset. It was because he was pointed out as well, demanded to hand over even more shocking great gifts. In the end, everyone gradually scattered. They all carried different emotions, some of them resentment, some of them laughing loudly inside. Everything here came to a close. However, news spread out like a gust of wind, engulfing the 3,000 provinces. The news of Huang being crippled seemed to have sprouted wings. Many great sects in the 3,000 provinces were informed. Little friend, you sigh. Immortal Academy's supreme being came. Sacred Academy's old monster also came. The two great experts both carried incomparable regret and anger. Yet there was nothing they could do. They felt a bit ashamed when they faced Xianxia, feeling self-blame. It is not Senior's fault, Xianxia said. It was because the one who took action was a ruined immortal. If the two supreme beings didn't choose to return to the 9 heavens, they would likely also suffer greatly, be crippled here. The two great experts weren't inflexible people, but in the end, they still felt like they wronged Huang. After a bit of consoling and some sighs, some regrets, the two supreme beings left in the end. They brought the Iron Blood War banner with them, returning to the 9 heavens. Qin clan gradually became quiet. Let's go, Yunxi, we should also leave, Celestial clan's elder said. Even though he could still be considered calm, previously not in a rush to mock Xianxia, he now couldn't hold himself back. The corners of his lips curled up, carrying a smile. Now that Huang was crippled, what was there to even worry about? There was no need to feel any restraining fear about him ascending to the peak and dominating the world in the future. Celestial clan's elder laughed, now no longer needing to lower his stance, preparing to bring away Yunxi. However, what was unexpected was that Yunxi was actually opposed to it, not willing to leave. What are you trying to do? He is already crippled. There is no need to worry anymore. In the future, when the old ancestor comes out to negotiate with Immortal Qin, we can just demand the flying immortal stone back. You don't need to stay behind. Celestial clan's elder said. I must stay behind. Yunxi said. Have you gone crazy? He is already crippled. There is no need to do this. Celestial clan's elder was a bit stunned, not understanding. It was because before this, when he brought Yunxi to Qin clan, she continuously resisted, not willing to come here. She even directly rejected him in Qin clan's great hall. However now, why was she going to stay behind? Celestial clan's elder really didn't understand. Before that, Huang was high and mighty, his power great, rising up in the world. You all couldn't stop him, which was why you wanted me to follow by his side. Get close to him. This is what made me feel such humiliation. Yunxi said. Can we even call ourselves the Celestial Clan then? We actually have to be the servile, that is utter humiliation, not worthy of being called Celestials, not worthy of this name. Now that something happened to him, I am willing to stay behind, because I should have supported him back then to begin with. In the past, he accompanied me through bloody battles, protected me through hundreds of thousands of li, escorting me to the clan, yet he was actually treated that way. From today forth, even if he becomes immortal, his cultivation disappearing, I will still follow him into the lower realms to take care of him. Yunxi continuously spoke these words, extremely calm, not acting on impulse. This immediately made Celestial Clan's elder's face change. You're mad. What are you trying to do? I've let him down before. This is repayment. Yunxi's decision was firm. In his glorious age, I could only watch from afar. Didn't want to curry favor like you all. Now that he is weak, I want to get closer. He needs someone to take care of him. Yunxi turned around, walking towards Qin clan. Inside Qin clan, Xianxia was surrounded by a group of people, all of them wishing to examine him, but he refused. He didn't even let his parents or younger brother touch him, saying, this type of cursed power is already inside me. If you all examine it, I fear that something bad might happen to you all. At this time, Yunxi walked over, outside of everyone's expectations. Xianxia's mother, Qin Yining, was stupefied. Not even she thought that Celestial Clan's girl would come back. Sure how, you don't need to be dejected or feel worry. There will be a way. Xianxia spoke. Young lady, you are. Sure Xiling spoke up. I am willing to take care of him, to return to the lower realms with him. Xianxia said extremely calmly, moreover walking to Sure Hao's side. This? Everyone was stupefied. What is the point? Soon, I'll be no different from an ordinary person. It isn't suitable for you to return to the lower realms with me at all. Sure Hao shook his head. I wish to return with you to Stone Village. Begin Immortal is quite good as well. At the very least, it will be quiet, peaceful, not always chaotic like this place. Xianxia said. Comparatively speaking, she was much more open and easy-mannered than before, daring to speak her mind. If it was several years ago, she definitely wouldn't have been able to speak these words. You are a cultivator, returning with me really isn't suitable. Meanwhile, I truly wish to become immortal. Be at ease. Enjoy some years of quiet living. Sure Hao actually smiled when he said this. This left Qin Yining, Sure Xiling, and even the others stupefied. They saw how Sure Hao wasn't pretending to look happy at all. How he really was calm and relaxed. Just how tough was their oldest son's mind for him to be like this. He really didn't feel any grief or dejection. There wasn't a trace of worry or anxiety to be seen. Before, when he faced the ruined immortal and the cultivators of other sects, he was still extremely serious and also quiet. Now, he actually showed this appearance. Child, if you are holding everything in, if you want to cry, just cry, don't hold back. Qin Yining spoke while tears poured down, fearing that her oldest son would only harm himself by doing this. I'm really not pretending. Right now, my mind is extremely calm. Sure Hao said, wiping at Qin Yining's tears with his own hands. At this time, Xianxia walked up, handing him a handkerchief, standing at his side. Nothing will happen to Big Brother. I believe that he will return one day and strike down the ruined immortals. Sweep through all long-life enemies. Qin Hao said. Moreover, he added, if Big Brother truly doesn't have any intent to fight, willing to remain in the lower realm, I will still take action, end all of those enemies myself sooner or later. When he heard these words, even Sure Hao was stunned. He patted his shoulder, not saying anything. Sure Xiling and Qin Yining's eyes turned red, their chests sore. They hugged their two children. Soon afterwards, Xianxia brought over some medicinal soup for Sure Hao, having him drink it. Moreover, she remained at his side, wishing to take care of him. I still haven't been crippled yet. Still have a month left. Sure Hao looked towards her. 3 days altar, some sects brought over great gifts, sure enough 10 times that of before. Even though they were extremely distressed, they still didn't take the risk, scared that Sure Hao would take action. However, there were some inheritances who completely ignored Sure Hao's words, because they secretly formed connections. They showed Immortal Palace increased respect, asking them to come out to protect them. Huang has long been crippled. There's no need to feel fear. My clan's true immortal went out to suppress him, already teaching him enough of a lesson, so he should know when to stop. Immortal Palace's elder said, helping them feel at ease. Those people relaxed. Moreover, they didn't hold back, their words extremely harsh, even humiliating, chasing off those from Qin clan who came to demand repayment. However, on the 4th day, Sure Hao moved, actually taking action powerfully. When a sect that wasn't small was ripped apart by Sure Hao, swept through, all sides were shaken. Many people's faces immediately turning deathly pale. That day, Sure Hao swept through this sect, killing more than 10 people in this sect's higher levels, opened up their treasury, seized everything. Then, he hurried in another direction, continuously taking action, overturning several sects, making those inheritances sect masters and elders' blood dye the sky. News spread out, shaking up all sides. Many people were alarmed. Stop! It's a misunderstanding. We are willing to offer up the treasures. Some people immediately panicked, rushing over to Qin clan as if a flame was lit under their bottoms, gifting over a pile of treasures, moreover continuously explaining themselves. Of course, there were some who ran to contact Immortal Palace's people in alarm, pleading them to take action. Huang, do you not have the brains to learn from your mistakes? Did you forget the lesson taught by the true immortal? This was what Immortal Palace transmitted out. Then just have that ruined immortal make another trip. This was Hao's response. All sides were immediately stunned. Did he go mad? Soon afterwards, everyone understood. Perhaps Huang felt like he didn't have much time left, so he wanted to go crazy one last time. This type of lunatic, how could they offend such a person? Many people felt regret. Why did they have to clash with him like this? They could have just endured it for another month, waited until he was completely crippled. Huang, you are seeking the path to your own destruction. Immortal Palace's supreme being appeared, releasing a roar. However, in the end, he didn't dare take action, because he wondered if Huang was purposely drawing him out, working together with the 9 heavens supreme beings to kill him. Just like that, no one from Immortal Palace dared come out, making those inheritances panic even more. The ones sure how demanded 10 times the treasures from all moved out, swarming over to bring over gifts. 10 times the price. These sects all sighed in despair, faces already green. Even if their treasuries were sucked dry, it still wasn't nearly enough. They had to find other ways. Jade Splendor sect was facing the same situation. That sect master's face fluctuating between green and white, feeling endless regret, really wanting to slap his mouth a few times. Immortal Palace's people, didn't you want to come out to suppress me again? I'm waiting right here. Hao challenged. It was because he knew that the ruined immortal wasn't willing to come out again. Coming out once was already quite difficult, paying a great price. Now he was definitely hiding in that immortal spring, not daring to make a move. As for Immortal Palace's supreme being, his thoughts had also been read by Hao. The other side was definitely worried that he was working with Immortal Academy and Sacred Academy's experts to kill him. Just like that, no one was willing to come out to fight Hao. Many sects had no choice but to brace themselves. Head to Qin Clan's Immortal Mountain. Father, it is time for us to leave, return home. 10 days later, Hao spoke out. He was going to head down the path home. We are going home. Xiling nodded his head heavily. His chest felt extremely sore as he looked at his oldest son, finding it hard to calm down. His oldest son had heaven-warping talent, known as this great era's youngest and most powerful self-release realm cultivator, breaking the records, establishing a legend, yet in the end he had this type of ending. In the eyes of the husband and wife pair, their oldest son was too miserable. Originally, he could have altered history, becoming an unmatched existence who overlooked the world, high up above, yet he was crippled by another. This was too cruel. We're going home, going back. We aren't coming back ever again. Qin Yining wept. Even though in past few days Hao's reputation was spread around the outside world, sweeping through many sects in succession, crushing all sides until they had to lower their heads, not willing to step out, Qin Yining still felt sorrow, feeling bitter. It was because she knew that this was her eldest son's final brilliance and glory. A month's time would quickly pass. Big brother, I will be awaiting your return in the 3,000 provinces, Hao said. In the back, Immortal Qin released a sigh. With his cultivation severed, Dao crippled soon afterwards, Hao would be just like an ordinary person. This was eternal, never able to cultivate again. How was he supposed to return? We will come back, we definitely will. We will get revenge for Big Brother. There were several hundred kids, right now shouting out, clenching their fists, wiping the tears from their eyes. These were the youngsters Hao brought back from desolate border, boys and girls included. Most of them were still under their teenage years, the youngest only knew how to wail. Their eyes were all red, feeling extremely sad. At the same time, they also resolved themselves to get stronger, get revenge for Hao, kill that ruined immortal. I wonder after all these years have passed, what the 8 regions are like now. Hao said quietly. Last time, even though he went into the Void God realm, his trip was too hurried, not even having any time to understand the lower realms in detail when those behind him cut him off, wishing to seal him to death, so he had no choice but to hurriedly leave. Hao looked towards Immortal Qin, wishing to learn about the lower realms from him, what was going on. It was because he knew that there were some great sects in the 3,000 provinces who had special methods, able to communicate with the lower realms, receive information. Immortal Qin shook his head, his smile a bit bitter, saying, "Things are different now. There is no way to fight the will of heaven. No one can be sent down at all." He muttered to himself. After thinking to himself for a bit, he said, "Follow me." In the depths of Qin clan, before an ancient mountain, there was a region surging with primal chaos. This place was extremely hazy and also extremely mysterious. This was a region of unstable space, extremely chaotic. "This is a unique spatial node I found. If it was in a normal age, magic force could be sent into the lower realms through here, but now it is too difficult, impossible to do." Immortal Qin said. Sure Hao was deeply shocked. It was as if there was a crystal wall here, full of cracks. When one looked carefully, it was as if one could pry into the world behind it. "Magical force projection?" he asked. "Correct. In the past, a magical force projection could be sent down into the lower realms, but now it is no longer possible." Immortal Qin said. Sure Hao examined it. This was a spatial node as expected, not all that stable, but it couldn't be penetrated. If it is forcefully attacked, there will be a great backlash. The will of heaven will be like a blade, cutting through the primordial soul. Extremely terrifying. Immortal Qin said. Something was wrong with this age. One could no longer do as they wished like before. Sure Hao nodded. This was something he was aware of before. Now, there was already no way of challenging the heaven's will, couldn't defy the great realm's natural laws to enter the lower realm's 8 regions, or else one would face the punishment of mysterious laws. Otherwise, the so-called 7 deities entering the lower realms wouldn't have been so difficult. Sure Hao nodded. Even someone like Immortal Qin couldn't communicate with the lower realms. This was a good thing, proving that it was difficult for the higher realms to interfere with the lower realm's 8 regions. Soon afterwards, Qin clan's storeroom was completely opened, sparkling and resplendent. Light flowing about, divine brilliance rushing into the heavens. These were all gifted by the cultivators of different sects. Piles of heavenly treasures with divine weapons, exceptional divine bones, formation banners and cores, even more so rare precious medicines and other things. Forget about other people, even Sure Hao's eyes were momentarily distracted. There's this much. They were going to leave soon, so he began to stow away everything. He was going to bring everything into the lower realms. You were the one who demanded for 10 times the repayment. Could it be that even you didn't expect this result? Immortal Qin said with a smile. Haha. All right then. Sure Hao also laughed. Recently he didn't panic, nor did he feel worry. His mood always like this, just like the past. This type of mental toughness also left others rather speechless. It was because others all felt sorry for him, feeling regret, yet he himself didn't sink into dejection. Chest after chest of divine materials were moved, enough to build several great sects. This was Sure Hao's recent harvest. Truly was shocking. In reality, there were far more things than these. There were some that were medicinal fields, collected into spatial magical artifacts. For example, the Golden Lion himself had a few special magical artifacts, specifically for storing those divine medicinal herb fields. It could be said that when Sure Hao was dealing with some sects, he really completely uprooted them, even wiping out their medicinal fields earth, wrapping all together as takeout extremely thorough. Let's go. Sure Hao sighed. He brought everything onto a giant boat. The hundreds of children were already standing on it, their small faces excited. Their faces had tears, but also smiles. They were heading to a brand new world. They wanted to rise up there, cultivate powerful divine abilities, and then return in the future to get revenge for their big brother. Are you really going to come? Sure Hao looked at a purple-clothed young lady, precisely Xianxia. She was slender and elegant. When her clothes fluttered about, purple energy rose in spirals, making her look like an aloof goddess. It had to be said that Xianxia really was extremely beautiful, worthy of being Celestial Clan's most dazzling pearl. Her beautiful hair was glossy and smooth, skin sparkling white, oval face filled with unswerving determination. A pair of black crystal-like eyes carried a bit of blurriness. She forcefully nodded, insisting on following him into the lower realms. Child, come here, Qin Yining said. Even though she was full of emotions, Right now, she revealed a smile, pulling Xianxia, really treating her like a daughter she was fond of. That type of expression really leaving Celestial Clan's young lady feeling extremely embarrassed. Xiahou turned around, looking towards the golden lion, his eyes flickering endlessly, revealing a complicated expression. You, what are you trying to do? This lion was extremely sharp, sensing a bit of danger, inadvertently backing up. All of the golden fur on its body stood on end. During these past few days, it was full of excitement and happiness, because Huang was crippled. In its eyes, the time had come. Perhaps it could break free. 1 month's time, for a pure-blooded fearless lion, was extremely short. Could quietly wait, patiently stick it through. When that time came, he could properly settle things with Huang. You're quite excited, waiting for me to become crippled, right? Xiahou asked. What? No way. Why are you thinking like that? We are locusts on the same thread right now. Your shame is my shame. Your glory is my glory. All benefits mutual. The golden lion spoke righteously, loudly shouting out. I feel like this isn't your true intent. Are you waiting to kill me when we head down into the lower realms? Xiahou looked at it. When these words sounded, many people's expressions changed, including Xialing, Xianxia, and the others, because there was a high chance of this happening. Previously, they really overlooked this, almost forgetting about a great disaster. I feel like we might as well enjoy a lion meat stew while we can before we set out, Xiahou said. Chang. Qianhao was extremely direct, holding a silver spear in hand, directly pressing it against the space between the lion's brows, wishing to take action in his older brother's place. The golden lion's eyes contracted, fine hairs standing on end. It was extremely nervous, not because of Qianhao's hostility, but rather towards Huang's decision. Huang, you cannot do things like this. I've traveled together with you for so long without any intention of harming you. Instead helping you fight many times. It wouldn't admit it even if it died. It seems like after you followed me for some time, I don't really want to kill you anymore. However, bringing you down with me like this is too dangerous. You might become a possible source of danger. Xiahou said. When everyone heard this, they all inwardly sighed. It seemed like Huang really was going to be crippled. There was no miracle that could happen. He wasn't pretending, or else why would he say this? There's no issue. I have a divine artifact here that can solve that issue, Immortal Qin said. He loosened his hand, inside of it an old-fashioned scroll. When it was opened, magical force surged, natural laws interweaving, carrying wisps of golden mist. What is this? Xiahou asked. A master and servant agreement, an ancient article from the last great era, likely something written by a great figure. It's something I discovered from historical ruins, Immortal Qin said. The golden lion's face immediately changed, couldn't help but back up. The harm this thing could inflict him with was just too great, because it had previously heard that once this agreement was signed, then one would completely become a slave. Xiahou received it and looked it over. After learning its use, he directly activated it, not showing a hint of hesitation. In that instant, divine light erupted, surrounding him and the golden lion within, shining with incomparable brilliance. Ah! The golden lion screamed, continuously roaring out, struggling intensely. However, it was completely useless. When everything calmed down, Xiahou carefully experienced the results. He nodded, expressing his satisfaction. The golden lion released a low roar, utterly furious. This agreement was too unfair. Once Xiahou became sick, if he died, it would also die. Meanwhile, if something happened to it, it wouldn't affect Huang at all. There were many restrictions applied to it through the agreement, stating that it had to obey Huang, or else it would suffer a great disaster. Instead of saying that this is an agreement, it is better to say that it is a decree left by an immortal Tao Great One in the past, engraving the most powerful natural laws that cannot be defied. Immortal Qin said. For cultivators at the mortal Tao domain, once this agreement was successfully activated, it was impossible to resist. Even though the golden lion was furious, it still couldn't do anything. In the end, it hung its head in dejection, following behind Xiahou. Since you aren't willing to follow me, Why don't you just stay behind in the 3,000 provinces? I won't restrict you. Xianxia said. I refuse. The Golden Lion refused. It was because right now it really was bound to Huang. If Huang died in the lower realms, then it would also die. That was why it wanted to stay by his side, ensure that he continued living. Apart from this, if it stayed behind in the higher realms, it would definitely be detested by all, beaten and abused by everyone. The first reason was because it came from the other side. The second was because Xianxia had established too many grudges, recently oppressing many sections. Once he left, all of them would immediately retaliate. The Golden Lion didn't want to become a living target, face everyone's attacks. In the end, it still felt like it had to follow at Xianxia's side. At the same time, it also felt that this human was quite special. If there really was a turn for the better in the future, it wasn't entirely impossible for his cultivation to be restored. In that short instant, it made its decision. In the end, the warship moved through the sky, carrying a powerful divine Tao aura, carrying a mountain of heavenly treasures, as well as those children and his parents, leaving into the distance. Immortal Qin and Xianxia saw them out along the way. The Golden Lion rolled its eyes, strongly disliking Immortal Qin. In the end, Immortal Qin basically gave Xianxia a great gift. That decree basically brought him a powerful and reliable helper. This was especially the case under his current troublesome situation. With someone like the Golden Lion, it seemed much more precious. Crucifix in Yang Earth, this place was just that bleak. This was a past life restricted region, but now it was instead so quiet. They arrived. The warship entered the ancient land. Today, it was no longer that quiet because after news went out, many people knew that Huang was going to leave, return to the lower realms. When the various sects learned of this, they all went on their way. Could be considered as all sides moving out. A few people rushed over, following them here. Xianxia didn't hide anything, nor did he need to. Even though this ancient path existed in this world, not just anyone could go through. At the very least, not even the Golden Lion with its heaven-defying bloodline could. Even he himself had to endure a life and death trial, and only then could he withstand that gate's law power. Right now, only he could take this path. This is a life-restricted region? Even Immortal Qin sighed with regret. Even the most powerful inheritance had the day when it declined. This place was a life-restricted region, an unmatched figure residing within it. In the past, even when the other side invaded, they could still remain intact on their own, unaffected by the turmoil of the outside world. The so-called restricted regions couldn't be stepped into, all other life forms had to stay away. It represented an extreme Tao that couldn't be touched. Yet now, this place was covered in ashes, all of the mountains ruined. Unknown just what kind of battle occurred here to cause the complete destruction of a life-restricted region. These ashes were all left behind after gods and devils were burned down, Xianxia explained. Right now, not only did Immortal Qin's face change, even the faces of other sex cultivators who followed from the distance paled, shivering with fear. Ashes covered the ground. Even after millions and millions of years passed, it still wasn't scattered by wind or rain, still remaining here. Moreover, golden bones, purple fingernails, black teeth, and other things could occasionally be made out from the ashes. All of them bone material that hadn't been burned down. This made everyone feel more and more alarmed. The remains that were here, did they belong to the restricted region's experts, or did they belong to outsides? Xianxia stood there, moreover starting to derive a great method, releasing yin and yang energies, displaying the greatest power. In that instant, not only did two streams appear on the ground, one yin, one yang, in the end, irregular scenes appeared in the sky as well. The void split apart. A great black river overflowed. A great golden river shone with incomparable brilliance, surging and roaring, moreover intersecting. By the great river there were ruined structures and other things. They really were life-restricted region remains. Everyone sucked in a cold breath of air when they saw this. It was real after all. This was a place where taboo existences had lived. Xianxia personally controlled the warship, heading into the sky, closing in on the Great Yin and Great Yang rivers. Father, Mother. At the crucial moment, Xianxia rushed over, tears continuously falling from his eyes, true emotions revealed, hugging his parents while sobbing. Then he hugged Xianxia. My child, are you really not going to follow us? Qin Yining also cried, not willing to part with her second son. I won't leave. I wish to become strong here. I will rise up. Even if you all cannot return, I will come to pick you two up. Xianxia vowed. In the end, he wiped away his tears, flying off the warship. On the ground, many people were looking up. Many great sects came to see this scene when they heard what happened. Huang is truly pitiful, having his cultivation destroyed, meeting this end. Can this be considered running away into the lower realms in defeat? Sai choosing to banish himself, forced to this extent by a ruined immortal. He previously established such glorious battle accomplishments in desolate border, yet his end is so miserable. A few people said softly, not daring to speak too loudly out of fear of angering powers like Immortal Palace. Of course, there were some who remained extremely cold, for example, Heavenly Country, Underworld Earth, Immortal Palace, and others. They looked forward to Xianxia being crippled. Leaving like this is also fine. It was because in the recent few days the trouble he stirred up really was too great. Xianxia stood at the bow of the ship, controlling the warship, sending it into the void, entering those ruins. He arrived before the roiling rivers. In the end, he turned around, gave those people one last look. Then, with a swing of his sleeves, he collected the warship, only him remaining, towering in the heavens. Honglong, yin and yang energies erupted. Where the two rivers intersected, a gate appeared. Meanwhile, Xianxia already rushed inside, standing inside the gate. He's going, leaving like this. From today forth, this world would no longer have a Huang. Some people sighed. There were many others who just silently watched the scene in the life-restricted region ruins void. Huang went inside, disappeared behind that Dao gate just like that. It was extremely noisy on the ground, everyone discussing amongst themselves. Extremely chaotic. There really was an ancient path. Everyone was shocked, also in doubt. At the final moments, Huang was still so heaven-defying, finding a mysterious path. There were people who released blazing radiance from their eyes, staring at the great rivers in the sky, at that gate. Even now, it still didn't close. The great Yin River surged, black mist raging, as if it was a path into a realm of devils. The great Yang River overflowed, golden Yang essence erupting, dazzling and holy, burning the skies until the heavens itself were going to melt. I previously heard that the lower realm's 8 regions are extremely mysterious. Many of the vicious 10 previously entering and leaving that place, that it contains tremendous secrets. Correct. There have always been rumors that the 8 regions hide heaven-shocking things. There were some whose eyes began to burn with desire, staring at that gate. This chance is rare. Is there anyone who wishes to take this path and take a look around the lower realms? Suddenly, someone said quietly. There were many people who became restless. They thought about some rumors, wishing to use this chance to enter the lower realms. It was because they suspected that the reason why Huang wanted to go down from the 9 heavens, in a hurry to return to the lower realms, was precisely because he had some objective. Otherwise, that place was so desolate. With his heaven-warping talent, why would he confine himself? In their opinion, the reason why Huang was able to rise up, obtain his current accomplishments, was likely because he obtained something in the lower realms, that this place had extremely terrifying secrets. Of course, this was only what some people suspected, which was why they wanted to take the risk and enter the lower realms. Meanwhile, when some great sects higher levels had these thoughts, things became even simpler. They directly brought out some disciples that were loyal to their sect, had them go through. Regardless of whether they obtained anything, there shouldn't be any harm to the sect if they made a trip through the lower realms. In the end, a group of youngsters and some older generation big names rushed into the sky. They left their fears behind, rushing towards the point where Great Yin and Great Yang intersected. There was primal chaos here, as well as a gate, faintly discernible, still hasn't disappeared. However, when a miserable scream sounded, everyone's hearts were immediately stirred. Then, Everyone felt chills run down their entire body. A wave of biting coldness made everyone's expressions change, becoming completely horrified. Some people's faces became pale white. When they saw the scene ahead, they couldn't help but scream out. Just now, a group of people tried to outdo each other, scared that they might be left behind, rushing forward as fast as they could. As a result, several dozen rushed in at the same time. However, only one person released a miserable scream. The others didn't even have the chance to utter a groan before they died. Everyone saw that after those people entered. Their bodies directly exploded, turning into bloody mist. Not even bones remaining, body and spirit eradicated. This wasn't one or two people, but rather an entire group. Several dozen experts died miserably, only some bloody mist left. They were completely destroyed. Behind them were over 100 people, all of them scared to the point where they were shuddering, coming to a rigid halt. Then, they quickly backed up. This scene was too terrifying, leaving them with great fear. Why is it like this? A few people cried out, full of confusion. Not long ago, everyone saw Huang calmly walk through, leaving in such an easygoing manner, no emotions revealed at all. Yet when it was them who did the same, a group of people were wiped out. Chi. On the ground, a sect master activated a magical artifact, wishing to test just how terrifying that gate was. Kacha. Sure enough, his magical artifact broke apart the moment it flew inside, crushed into powder. A powerful precious artifact was destroyed just like that. This place was completely silent. This time, everyone felt fear, uneasiness. All of them couldn't help but back up. As for the skies, those who were about to rush inside were shaking, their faces white as snow. They all turned around and ran. This was too terrifying. For them, that gate seemed to lead straight into hell, about to devour their souls. It wasn't something they could approach. There were some who didn't believe in the supernatural, using all types of methods, but they all failed. This time, they all became quiet. Just how powerful was Huang exactly? Just now, under everyone's eyes, he calmly entered, not affected in the slightest. In the end, when it was their turn, all who rashly went in died miserably. This type of difference was too great. Under rumbling sounds, the two rivers surged. The primal chaos mist disappeared, that gate also completely vanishing. That wasn't all. The two rivers and the ruins also became indistinct, in the end vanishing. Forget about entering the gate, even making them appear wasn't something they could do. Everyone understood. They had no fate with this path, unable to go through it all. It belonged only to Huang. Only he could face that devastating power without any fear. In reality, several days later, Immortal Palace's elder came. He was a supreme being as well, so in the end, he was finally able to make the Great Yin and Great Yang rivers appear, the gate also emerging. Only it was extremely blurry, not all that clear. He stood there for a long time, not entering. When news of this got out, everyone knew that, as expected, only Huang could take that path. Even Immortal Palace's elder felt hesitation, fear visible in his eyes. That path targeted the power of the challenger. Only those with strength far exceeding their cultivation realm could go through. In reality, after Sure Hao entered the path, it wasn't as relaxed as everyone thought. However, he had entered once before, had some experience, which was why he could remain unflustered. Even this time, it was extremely strenuous, walking forward step by step. In the end, after just walking a set distance, blood flowed out from the corners of his lips. Several dozen li later, that path was still extremely long, no end in sight. The stone steps winded in the void, unknown where the path headed. Was the destination really the lower realms? In the surroundings, everything was hazy, primal chaos surging. Roars could vaguely be made out, as if ancient beasts were roaring out. Sure Hao listened carefully. This wasn't a true ancient beast, but rather rumbling sounds produced by the clash of different laws, some natural laws interweaving in the distance. His expression went sluggish because the natural law force for the current him was incomprehensible. There was no way he would take the risk, he couldn't leave this path. As he continued forward, He saw more and more natural laws and order in the form of murderous red metal strips, interweaving in the void, extremely dazzling. Sure how advanced carefully, feeling more and more like this path was special. The stone steps below his feet were extremely real, not formed from natural laws. There really was someone who paved this path. He had a feeling of déjà vu. In the past, when he left Immortal Domain with Sanzang and Shinming, these two undead knights, looking for the path back, they somehow ended up in a lightning abyss. In that place was a small cobblestone path arranged in the void. 8 regions, a savage and bitter land. Is it really a prison? Sure how wiped away the blood from the corners of his lips. The pressure was now extremely great, injuring him. However, he was still thinking to himself, all types of thoughts running through his head. Along the way, sure how almost lost track of time, continuing down the path just like that. This path led downwards, as if it really did go from the heavens dome down to the earth's surface. 1 day, 2 days, maybe 3 days passed. Sure how couldn't say for sure. On this path, his perception seemed to have lost effectiveness, time overlaying, space-time displaced. Everything was just this hard to differentiate. Extremely strange. Sure how's body suffered damage. There was always a type of terrifying power here hacking at Sure how, suppressing him. If it was anyone else, they would have long exploded to pieces. Sure how continued to persist on. Even though he coughed out blood, he still stood tall, not falling, advancing step by step. There was a mysterious domain here that crushed against one's body, making one feel as if they were going to burst. Sure how couldn't increase his speed even if he wanted to. Whenever he raised his feet, he would always be smashed by great stars one after another, the resistance tremendous. Hong. Finally, he saw a glimmer of hope. It was because after who knew how many li he had passed, how many days went by, he saw the end of the stone steps. He reached the earth. Cough. Sure how coughed out. He finally left this ancient path. In that instant, a wave of desolate air swept over, the feeling a bit familiar. This should be the 8 regions, the lower realms he had previously lived in. Something's not right. There are other things. It was because in that instant, Sure how's heart began to tremble, in a bit of disbelief. He smelled a fragrance that penetrated deep into his mind, as if he was going to ascend in multicolored ascension light. This was definitely not an ordinary great medicine. Even divine medicines were no longer that enticing for the current self-release realm Sure how, which meant that there was only one other answer. This was a long-life medicine. Sure how was stunned. Why would the lower realms have this type of medicine? One had to understand that in the past, raising this type of divine medicine was impossible, the spiritual essence ridiculously thin. But this type of fragrance, this type of medicinal effects, it can only belong to a long-life medicine. Sure how was shaken. He had just returned to the lower realms, yet he already encountered this stock of long-life medicine, descended in that region. At the limits of the road, it was extremely spacious, a great desert lacking life force. For this type of place to have medicinal fragrance really was something different. It was at times rich, at times faint. This type of medicinal fragrance continuously changed, but it was deep and continuous. Sure how quickened his pace, walking forward, crossing this great desert. And, sure enough, after just crossing some hills, he saw some of the scenery ahead. In the desert, there was a medicinal garden that was extremely ancient. Moreover, there were more hills in the distance, appearing too abruptly. This cut off Sure how's path forward. A monument towered before him, on it a few large characters, words carved by a long-life being. A life-restricted region? Sure how was stunned. His face immediately went rigid. The lower realms had life-restricted regions too? He was a bit stunned. This was just too difficult to believe. The so-called life-restricted regions should be in the 9 heavens above. Why was it in the 8 regions with sparse spiritual essence? One had to understand that this place was like a prison. Who was willing to send themselves into a prison? This barren land viewed as the lower realm's 8 regions prison actually hit a life-restricted region? Sure how's body went taut. These weren't some remains. This place was in good condition. From the looks of it, some type of taboo ancient existence really did live here. Someone of that level could calmly face even the invasion of the other side. This was a world of its own, not affected by worldly disputes, extremely powerful. Sure Hao had visited Crucifix in Yang Earth, but that place was ruined, now already no longer a true life-restricted region. Now he returned to the lower realms, yet ended up encountering one? Perhaps he couldn't call himself fortunate. Maybe unlucky was a more fitting description. It was rumored that once one came to this type of place, one could only enter, could not leave. Even heaven-warping figures would die. Sure Hao revealed a bitter smile, releasing a light sigh. He finally made it back to the lower realms with such difficulty, yet now ended up encountering this type of thing. His life really was full of trouble. The restricted region blocked his path forward, cutting off this great desert. Meanwhile, behind him was that path, the stone stairway leading into the 3,000 provinces. Right now, he had two choices: either go forward or follow the stone stairs back into the 3,000 provinces again. However, when Sure Hao turned around, his face became a bit rigid. Where did that path go? Why did it disappear? The space behind him was completely empty. What heavenly stairway in the void? What path into the higher realms? That extremely long stone stairway already disappeared without a trace. Sure Hao immediately felt a headache. Why did that path disappear? How was he supposed to head into the 3,000 provinces in the future? He immediately recollected himself. While facing danger, where did he have the luxury of worrying about the future? There was already trouble right now. He didn't have a choice, only one path he could take. The sky became dusky, no sun visible. But this place wasn't surrounded by darkness either. It was like a quiet evening, carrying a bit of a blood color. Sure Hao took steps forward. Since he didn't have a choice, then he would just proceed. So, golden light surged from his sleeves, a savage beast aura appearing. The golden lion was let out by him, appearing on this quiet land. The fearless lion was powerful, bloodline rare. It stared blankly momentarily. After sizing up his surroundings, he cried out in alarm, "This is the lower realms?" It also found this a bit hard to believe, because it already smelled a long-life medicinal fragrance. It was just too intoxicating, making its pores relax, as if it was going to ascend into immortality. Sure Hao didn't act too politely, sitting on its back, ordering it to advance. Life-restricted region? The golden lion screamed out in alarm. It saw that monument, the characters on it, recognizing them, clearly understanding the warnings. This place couldn't be entered. It was a life-restricted region. Unfortunately, it didn't recognize the first two characters. This was the name of the restricted region. I just knew that whenever there would be danger, I would have to go at the very front. The golden lion was discontent. Sure Hao was currently pondering over the meaning of the two characters, not paying it any attention. He felt like those seemed to be two special symbols, and not the usual immortal text. The lord of the restricted region was prideful. For the sake of naming his own land, he might have very well created his own symbols, not using the commonly used characters. This younger generation is named Sure Hao. Passing by to return home, I apologize for disturbing you. Sure Hao spoke out. Regardless, he had to pass through this place, so he had to greet the lord of this place. Hong Long. As soon as he spoke, the restricted region actually underwent an astonishing change. The medicinal fields shone, fragrance wafting out. Many old medicines actually moved, running. Don't tell me they were all divine medicines? Even though he was still far away, Sure Hao's mind still jumped. A stock of long-life medicine, together with so many divine medicines, this place was just too enticing. Pillars of light shot out one after another, quickly piercing through the heavens like heaven-supporting pillars, holding up the dome of heaven. The scene was just too grand, extremely shocking. However, not even all of the splendid divine light pillars were able to completely illuminate the surroundings. On the contrary, everything became a bit darker, only the nearby regions swirling with radiance. It was as if they immediately entered deep into the night, and then some lamps were lit. Who disturbs the restricted region's peace? A voice sounded, asking like this. Sure Hao had just come here. Yet someone replied, breaking the eternal silence. It made him shiver inwardly. This later generation named Sure How accidentally offended you. I am passing through this place, only wish to return home, Sure How explained. No matter how arrogant he was, there was no way he would challenge a life-restricted region. He tried his best to ease his tone to explain why he approached. We previously established a divine monument. Those who enter the land of rest would all die. Rules are rules, they cannot be gone against. In the depths of the restricted region, that voice was still extremely quiet, not showing any emotions. However, it crashed down like thunder onto Sure Hao's ears. Wasn't this existence too domineering? He immediately felt the desire to kill. He had just approached this place, not even offended the other party, yet he already provoked a deathly disaster? In his opinion, the existence in the restricted region was too domineering. The golden lion's fur all moved, standing on end. It was absolutely horrified. After offending a restricted region's lord, was there any chance of survival left? Where is the divine monument? I did not see it. Sure How didn't panic, instead asking like this. Those who dared dispute with someone from the restricted region really were few. The golden lion immediately broke out into cold sweat. Wasn't this the same as wishing to die sooner? After a moment of silence, a sigh sounded from the depths of the restricted region. It seems like it really has disappeared. Time, it truly is ruthless. When he finished speaking, a few crushed rocks rumbled, slowly rising, reassembling, forming a monument in front of Sure How. This monument was clearly an ancient object, existing for an extremely long time, definitely didn't belong to this great era. There were traces left behind by terrifying divine abilities, the mottled markings extremely deep. Sure How remained calm. Just now, he seemed to have experienced the feeling of time flowing in reverse. That monument seemed to have appeared from the river of time. Even though the monument has already fallen, rules are still rules, cannot be changed, that creature said. He still didn't seem to have any intention of letting Sure How and the golden lion go. However, I can let those within you go. They seem to be innocent, brought here by you. The topic shifted, he actually spoke like this. This time, Sure How didn't argue. He could send away his parents and those children first, he couldn't let them take risks here. With a honglong noise, Sure Hao's body shone. A warship flew out from his chest, gradually enlarging, returning to its normal size. At this time, Sure Xialing, Qin Yining, and those children didn't know what was happening in the outside world appeared. My child, did we return to the lower realms? Qin Yining asked. Yes, we have arrived. Sure How replied, and then said, You all go first. I met a senior and have some matters to take care of. Head to desolate regions Stone Country and wait for me. He didn't dare tell them the truth, fearing that his parents would worry for him. At the same time, divine light appeared in the restricted region, a silver path appearing. It was like a waterfall but also like a silver region, extending into the sky dome, reaching into the distance. This was a path that led outside the restricted region. This place is... Sure Xialing and Qin Yining weren't normal people. They smelled the medicinal fragrance, feeling like it was immortal medicine. Both of them were moved and shocked. Hurry and leave. Do not wait for me. Immediately head to Stone Country. Head to Stone Village. Sure How warned, his voice extremely strict. The two revealed a look of worry. They wanted to say something, but when they saw Sure Hao's expression, they had no choice but to agree. Quickly ride the warship out of this place. The warship followed the silver-colored path, quickly leaving, disappearing in the blink of an eye. During this process, the golden lion watched blankly, and then it stared at Sure How with a resentful expression. It originally wanted to leave too, but Sure How let it out ahead of time, so they both basically barged into this restricted region. Who came to disturb this place? Suddenly, a voice sounded extremely clear, also a male voice. It carried a type of charm, much gentler than the voice from before. A man and a beast. They have gone against the rules. Intruding into our world, ought to be killed. That voice from before sounded extremely respectful, seriously replying. Child, your slaughtering nature is still that strong. It will affect your great Tao path. That gentle voice sounded, making one feel as if they were bathing in autumn winds. Shihao was shocked. The one from before was already extremely powerful, but now it sounded like he was nothing more than an assistant. The Golden Lion was also shocked, feeling greatly shaken. It was because it felt like that so-called assistant had long become an undying level existence as well, strength deep and immeasurable. You came from the 3,000 provinces, this is a bit interesting, making it through that path. Right at this time, the voice that was rather alluring spoke again. Child, collect the formation, bring them over. That man spoke, actually wishing to meet Shihao. Understood. That assistant spoke. In that instant, all of the heaven-reaching pillars of light disappeared, entering into the earth. When the beams of light were restrained, the surface rumbled, some places displaying cracks, for example, where the pillars of light disappeared into. The Golden Lion's eyes widened, sucking in a cold breath of air. Couldn't help but break out into a cold shiver. It was because it saw that underneath the earth, there were immortal Tao true bones buried here. They were damaged, incomplete. One could imagine that even when this level of existence entered, they were all killed. Soon afterwards, a green wooden bridge appeared, extending over from the short mountains and hills from the distance. It was shaped like a stone arch bridge, but it was made of wood. The bridge also had some branches, sparkling and replete green leaves growing from it like pieces of jade. On the bridge was a life aura that flourished like a sea, carrying powerful divine force fluctuations. Divine wood. Needless to say, this wooden bridge was definitely refined from ancient divine wood. An ancient tree that achieved immortality, but killed and refined into a bridge. Shihao sighed with astonishment. At the end of the bridge, the area between the hills was extremely lush and verdant. The bridge stretched across the medicinal field, nothing blocking its path. Shihao believed that if not for this bridge, if he directly rushed in, he might have immediately been attacked. He already saw the world-shocking formation. Once activated, all gods and Buddhas would be killed without exception. He got off the wooden bridge, walking between the hills. The grass was lush and verdant, air fresh and clean, as if he had entered Shangri-La. The skies here brightened a bit, but it was still somewhat murky, as if shrouded in a layer of mist, a world without daylight. Not far out, there were palaces on many of the short mountains, extremely grand. There were some made of silver metals, some golden, others that were made of bronze. These palaces had a terrifying aura. If one looked at them from the distance, it would make one feel as if their mind was about to collapse. Pooh! The Golden Lion immediately spat out a large mouthful of blood. Just because it tried to look at a silver ancient palace on a mountain, it was as if it suffered from the attack of the most terrifying heavenly tribulation, making it unable to hold on. Palaces rested before them one after another, all of them extremely ancient, any one of them as if they could suppress the heavens. Do not look randomly. Those places are not things people like you can look at. The male who was suspected to be an assistant said coldly. Shihao and the Golden Lion became alarmed, moreover looking towards the source of the voice. Just up ahead were several thatched cottages built on the level area between the hills, not on the mountains, nor were they like those grand ancient palaces. The simple thatched cottages had a type of aloof and detached charm. Being able to survive through that path is reason enough not to kill. They can be allowed to live. Right at this time, the gentle voice sounded again, precisely from the grass hut, but the person was covered by mist. Understood. The assistant seemed to be nodding. Shihao was moved, now releasing a slight breath of relief. If you wish to meet the Lord, you all must still cross this lake. The one suspected to be an assistant spoke out again. The green grass was soft like a cushion. Nor far out, there was a small lake, sparkling like sapphire, separating Shihao from the thatched cottages. Shihao had long gotten off the Golden Lion, not riding it. He didn't dare act presumptuously here, definitely wouldn't ride on a battle beast here. The Golden Lion immediately felt a headache. It followed Shihao to the riverside, but didn't dare head down. It was because it didn't even cross the ancient path through its own power, couldn't withstand the pressure. Sure Hao continued forward. When his feet landed on the sparkling lake surface, waves of ripples were immediately produced. In a daze, that place was like the cosmos. With each step that descended, seas of stars would ripple outwards. In the back, the golden lion trembled. It sensed a terrifying power fluctuating. Right now, it watched as Sure Hao advanced, his movements steady. After a bit of hesitation, it also reached out a claw towards the lake surface. Hong! Immediately afterwards, the golden lion experienced incomparable pain. That claw broke down, skin and fur falling off, sharp claws broken, flesh rotten, only bones left. It released a muffled groan, couldn't help but scream out. It was absolutely horrified, quickly backing up. The golden lion did everything it could to recover the claw, but no matter how it exerted force, it couldn't restore it. The flesh came off, skin and fur not attached, only bones that carried golden light left. This injury actually couldn't be healed. It was extremely terrified. What kind of lake was this? How could it be this terrifying? The golden lion looked forward, seeing that Sure Hao had already walked more than 10 zhang forward, and then it finally calmed down a bit. It was because Huang also suffered damage. At first, he was unaffected, but after more than 10 zhang, his legs had decayed, revealing sparkling white soul bones. However, he didn't stop. The lake was sparkling, azure and translucent. Only when these types of ripples were produced would it appear terrifying. When the ripples spread, the seas of stars were endless. A great Tao aura pervaded outwards, as if a great cosmos was being created, containing a life and death aura. As Sure Hao continued forward, the flesh on his calves also came off, bones exposed, the scene horrifying. Right now, wind and thunder stirred about, the entire small lake releasing natural law power. This was the great Tao, the great universe that was being opened, the stars countless moving around Sure Hao. In that place, there was already no lake visible, only a sea of stars. As he continued forward, it was as if a world was being established. Primal chaos surged, sparkling brilliance flickering about. Starting from Sure Hao's legs, his flesh continuously came off, in the end already reaching his chest, the scene utterly horrifying. The golden lion was stupefied. Was this fella going to die? During this process, the lake appeared again, all of the stars turning into droplets, becoming a small lake once more. However, the terrifying aura instead became even stronger. All of Sure Hao's flesh, from head to toe, disappeared, now completely a skeleton. It was as if he had an imperishable golden body. Moreover, during this process, his body continuously sunk, sinking into the lake. The golden lion's head trembled. Even Huang was about to die. It definitely wouldn't have a good ending. However, what was unexpected was that as Sure Hao's head entered the lake as well, he then slowly rose up and then continued forward again. Flesh appeared on his head, his skin and hair returning as well. When Sure Hao walked out several dozen zhang, his waist had already completely recovered, gradually being restored. In the end, Sure Hao left the small lake. His legs stepped on shore, entire body sparkling, slender body just as good as before, possibly even more abundant with life. A battle armor covered his body, his expression extremely calm. Cosmos Lake, lake of life and death. Only heaven-warping talents could make it through. In front of the thatched cottage, that male commented, his voice becoming even more gentle. Sure Hao saw that person. He was extremely shocked. This person was extremely young, and also extremely refined, his complexion fine. He looked like he wasn't over 30 years of age, at the very least. This was how he appeared on the outside. This person was dressed in white clothes, spotlessly white and perfect. On his face a gentle smile, incredibly good-looking and bright. His eyes were deep, could be considered an exceptionally handsome man. After passing through that path, you were already considered one of us. After crossing this lake, you can be considered to have passed the final trial, able to meet me. That male spoke, carrying a smile. If there wasn't anything unexpected, then this was the Lord of the restricted region. There was no need to think more. The so-called one of us was praise, believing that in the future, How could approach them, that he had this type of potential. How felt like everything was extremely unreal, as if it was all a dream. It really was hard to say that he ended up inside of a restricted region today, moreover seeing a taboo-level existence. Towards the 9 heavens life restricted regions, he had heard too much, but he never went inside, because he knew that there wasn't much hope of making it out alive afterwards. Even if there was the latter part of the imperishable scripture there, he was still helpless, unable to head there. Yet today he actually met this level of existence in the lower realms 8 regions. "Sit down, boy. Bring some tea," the white-clothed man said, his appearance extremely exquisite. In front of the thatched cottage there was a small side table, next to it 2 tree trunk seats. The middle-aged man sat on one of them, inviting How to sit on the other one. As for the so-called boy, he also looked extremely young, as if under 20 years of age. However, he was definitely extraordinary. From his pupils, one could see that he had lived for an endless amount of time. Apart from this, there was a woman behind the white-clothed male, extremely beautiful, bright and refined like a goddess. In fact, How had reason to suspect that she was an undying existence, or perhaps a true immortal. The white-clothed man was the master of this place, the lord of this restricted region. The man and women could both be considered his Tao children. How hesitated a bit, but then sat down. Since he came, then he should just see it to its end. It has been many years already. Too much time has passed. After endless generations have flowed on, my aged self almost feeling as if it has passed in meditation. Only then was I able to meet a youngster who is quite excellent. The white-clothed male said, releasing a light sigh, as if he was deeply moved. However, How instead caught on to something. Within that voice, it was as if a sword was ringing, resounding and sharp, as if it was going to tear apart the heavens, break through the great Tao, alter heaven and earth. In reality, that voice was extremely calm, but it even made one's mind tremble. The Tao child brought over tea, the fragrance pleasant. There was a true phoenix flapping its wings inside the teacup, moving about, bright red and resplendent, releasing an intoxicating aroma. How was extremely shocked. What kind of tea was this? Could it be even more extraordinary than the Tao comprehension immortal tea? Just some ordinary tea plants from the mountains planted by myself. The white-clothed man seemed to have seen through what he was thinking. Speaking like this, the lord of a restricted region grew tea leaves? How lowered his head. The tea leaves in the cup were bright red, releasing brilliant radiance. It really was swimming about, scarlet multicolored light surging, to the extent where there were even wing-fluttering sounds. They were too similar to true phoenixes, as if they were living creatures. These were tea leaves. They really were extraordinary. I really don't know just what kind of tea leaves these are. Perhaps they are rare even in immortal domain, he said with a light sigh. A sweet fragrance wafted out, making one feel extremely refreshed, as if they were the most precious rare great medicine. The tea cleansed the body and spirit, a single breath of the aroma making one feel as if they entered a clear mind state. It was extremely shocking. Immortal domain is vast and boundless. No lack of ancient tea trees. Enough to brew true Tao comprehension teas. I merely borrowed leaves from an ordinary bitter tea tree, merely water it a bit each year. The white-clothed man said with a smile. How stared blankly. He looked at the tea in this cup. This was just normal tea, not immortal tea? He immediately realized what was going on. The value of this tea didn't rest in the quality of the tea leaves. It was rather because the one who planted it was different that this tea was different. Flowers and plants that were cared for by a true immortal, no matter how ordinary they were, in the end, they would become extraordinary. Meanwhile, this lord of the restricted region was even more unimaginable. The bitter tea tree he planted, how could it be like the ordinary ancient tree of the mundane world? It was naturally extraordinary. When How looked at the tea again, he discovered that it had calmed down, the cup becoming still. Bright red leaves fell, extremely beautiful but no longer so mysterious. He took a sip. In that instant, a bitter taste spread through his mouth, even his tongue becoming numb. This type of taste was a bit hard to endure, completely different from the sweet fragrance it gave off. Xianxia opened his mouth, directly sucking in a breath of cold air. Even someone of his cultivation level ended up like this from the bitterness. One could imagine just how potent this tea was. If it was an ordinary person, they might directly die from the bitterness. It was because this tea leaf definitely had natural law force, or else how could it be like this? Even he felt like it was extremely uncomfortable, really wanting to spit it out. How is it? The white-clothed person asked, voice carrying a bit of charm. His eyes were deep, face bright and handsome, complexion fine like jade. He really was good-looking. Bitter. Xianxia only had this word. And, he asked, what else was there? Xianxia wanted to throw the teacup. Apart from bitterness, he really couldn't taste anything. He didn't have the nerve to say that it was extremely fragrant. Suddenly, he was shocked. All of a sudden, the bitterness and pain on his tongue disappeared. An extremely astringent feeling began to spread, as well as a bit of a sour feeling. This taste immediately dispersed, even making his entire being become a bit rigid. Too astringent, he couldn't help but say. Then, the tart taste, starting from his tongue, began to spread into his soul, the feeling not all that good either, definitely not enjoyment. Xianxia was speechless. What was the restricted region lord's intention? He actually brought out this type of crap tea when treating guests. It was bitter and astringent, difficult to swallow. This wasn't enjoying tea, this was suffering. He really wanted to spit it out. However, this was a life-restricted region. If he did that with the tea of a world-shocking figure, then it really would be too disrespectful. He couldn't do something like that. Only, this tea was just too different, right? Couldn't be drunk at all. Couldn't help one comprehend the Tao, nor could it be used as a type of enjoyment, so what was its use? This type of tea, only 9 individuals have drank it before. Normal people can't even drink a drop of it, because they do not have such great fortune. The white-clothed male said with a light sigh. He was so handsome, appearance not over 30 years. Even though he was male, there was a type of charm that was hard to describe. His eyes were deep, temperament extraordinary. He was like a phoenix who overlooked all birds, extraordinary and transcendent, making all birds kneel in worship. From the expression of that female Tao child behind him, he could see that even though she might be an immortal, she still carried an expression of jealousy, eyes full of strange brilliance. Xianxia muttered inwardly. Fortunately, he was male as well, so this restricted region's lord's extraordinary appearance didn't have much effect on him either. One could imagine if there were other young ladies who came here, saw this type of individual, just what kind of faces they would show, perhaps expressing greater admiration than even this female Tao child. Only 9 people drank it before. Just what kind of people were they? Xianxia asked. The first was naturally myself. The white-clothed man laughed, teeth extremely white like a dazzling youngster, not like an imposing restricted region lord. The others? Xianxia asked. The others were all youngsters, prides of heaven from different times, the heaven-warping figures of different ages. The white-clothed male replied. The pride of heaven of a generation, the most powerful young experts of different ages? Xianxia was shocked. From the start of Immortal Ancient Great Era until its conclusion, there were 8 youngsters who drank this tea. It truly is a pity. The white-clothed youngster shook his head, feeling extremely disappointed and frustrated. He turned around, looking towards the distance, as if he was trying to recall something. He was reminiscing, recalling the past, even more so feeling regret. What is a pity? Xianxia asked. He could be considered someone who wasn't scared to admit his ignorance, completely unaware, just directly asking like this. One had to understand that this was the lord of a restricted region. His power could oppress all under the heavens, command all sides. It is a pity that they all died, the white-clothed male said. Xianxia was stunned, a bit stupefied. He looked at this person, unable to utter a single word. What was the meaning of this? After drinking this tea they have died? Why did they all die? He couldn't help but ask. Because they drank this cup, which is why they all died, the white-clothed man said with a gentle smile. Hao was extremely speechless. If he was someone with an explosive temper, he might have cursed out. What shoddy tea was this? It wanted to harm him to death just like that? I must ask Senior to explain clearly to me, he said. It was because he believed that if the Lord of the restricted region wanted him dead, it was extremely easy. Why was there a need to expend such a great deal of effort? After they drank this tea, they all earnestly cultivated. In the end, they all took that path, yet due to some reason they all died. The white-clothed man sighed. He became even more disappointed and frustrated, his eyes reflecting the heavens, scenes of the great cosmos being torn apart. There were even terrifying scenes of the stars in the sky all exploding, absolutely horrifying. He wasn't trying to harm Hao, or else the consequences would be unimaginable. Right now, the sky dome was cracking apart, starry seas appearing, rising and falling. There were some stars that moved as his eyes swirled with radiance, even starting to break apart, being destroyed. Hao was shocked. It wasn't that he didn't know the power of the Lord of the restricted region. But now, when he took a hurried glance, saw this scene, he still felt incredibly shook. In the end, the white-clothed man's eyes dimmed, the depths of his pupils no longer the scene of the ancient cosmos collapsing, but rather 8 men and women who appeared. They appeared one after another, as if they walked over from different segments of the river of time, now reflected in his eyes. Was this his recollection of the past? Drink the tea, the white-clothed male said. Hao clenched his teeth, and then downed all of the remaining tea water in one gulp. This time, it was even more bitter and astringent, his entire mouth numb, already almost losing feeling. Then, Hao was stunned. It was because he discovered that a figure appeared right before him. This was a man, his figure tall, a zhang in length. His hair was wild, build extremely robust, as if he was an iron tower, possessing tremendous strength. He is named Aogu, the first youngster I met. He came from Primal Chaos Clan, appeared at the start of Immortal Ancient. He dominated all of the younger generation under the heavens, never suffered a defeat. The white-clothed male explained. This youngster's skin color was a light golden, radiance swirling about. He was clearly a body cultivator, sturdy to an alarming degree. I previously taught him the dragon wrestling heavenly art, the white-clothed male said. When Hao heard this, he was shaken. An ancient heavenly art, just from the name alone, he could tell that its power was definitely incredible. When he achieved immortality, became extremely powerful, he didn't heed my warnings, taking that path ahead of time. In the end, he never returned, withering away. The white-clothed man said with a sigh. Hao was shocked. After achieving immortality, when he became extremely strong. In the end, he still died. Then, when Hao's mouth became bitter, that youngster disappeared. A second figure appeared, a woman dressed in golden clothes. She was extremely beautiful, exceptionally alluring. Moreover, when she looked towards the white-clothed man, the look in her eyes wasn't like that of a master or senior at all, but rather one that couldn't conceal her adoration at all. The white-clothed man's expression was bitter. When he saw this golden-clothed young lady, his expression became complicated, recalling the past, sighing to himself, even more so feeling endless regret. Her name is Jin Zhan, came from Immortal Domain's Golden Crow clan. Her aptitudes really were too great. I thought that her accomplishments would even exceed mine. Unfortunately, she still died. The white-clothed male felt grief. He reached out his hand, wishing to caress that golden-clothed young lady's hair, but in the end, her figure scattered apart. Then, a third figure appeared. This was a young man, his appearance rather delicate. He is named Ruofeng, a rather delicate youngster. I previously taught him the immortal slaughter technique. The white-clothed man said. Hao couldn't calm down anymore. Regardless of whether those people died or not, it was enough to prove one thing, that this restricted region lord was too extraordinary. He passed down a different great method to each person, all of them entirely different. He was completely a treasury of information. Sure enough, as the white-clothed man introduced the others, they were all like this. He had taught all of them different great divine abilities. When the final person appeared, Hao was inwardly shaken. That was a woman truly too beautiful. A green moon appeared behind her head, making her look aloof and otherworldly. Her name is Qingyu, of the human race. What? She is Fairy Qingyu. Hao was extremely shocked. Precisely. Many people called her Fairy Qingyu. The white-clothed man nodded. This woman's appearance was exceptional, absolutely stunning. A blue moon hung behind her, illuminating the world. She was like a goddess of the world's creation, overlooking all under the sky. Every frown and smile was beautiful. Fairy Qingyu was extremely gentle in appearance, pure and holy. This ought to have been her appearance and demeanor when she was alive, extremely calm even when facing the lord of a restricted region. She looks calm and peaceful, but she is extremely prideful. The white-clothed man laughed. Then his eyes became dim. She has also died, falling in the last phase of Immortal Ancient. Hao's mind rose and fell, finding it hard to calm down. He really was shocked. He didn't know anything about those people before, nor had he heard about them. However, towards this final person, how could he not have heard about her? He had previously seen the seed she left behind, that green moon. Fairy Qingyu, the seed she passed down had been obtained by Qingyi. That flame and those symbols had long become one with Qingyi. It was to the extent where there were some who suspected that Fairy Qingyu might have some type of connection with Qingyi, perhaps even a reincarnation, difficult to say clearly. Hao was naturally shocked. The Fairy Qingyu whose name shook Immortal Ancient Great Era was actually connected to this person? She is your disciple? Hao asked. She can be considered one, I reckon. I passed down a great method onto her. The white-clothed male nodded. Hao was speechless. Just how strong was this person? He had seen 8 individuals, all of them figures who could move heaven and earth. Through Fairy Qingyu, he knew that the others were all truly exceptional. This restricted region lord was too mysterious. Definitely an unmatched figure. From his words, it seemed like he began taking on disciples from the start of Immortal Ancient Great Era. Aogu, he came from Primal Chaos Clan, the first expert to have reached this place, born at the start of Immortal Ancient Great Era. One could imagine just how long this restricted region lord had lived for. They are all dead. The white-clothed man released a sigh. A breeze blew past, moving his white clothes, adding a bit of a bleak feeling to his appearance. I drank this tea, then, Hao carefully spoke. It was because he didn't want to die for no reason. Those who drank this tea all died. It truly was inauspicious. You are the 10th. I waited for an entire great era. Today, I finally met you. The lord of this restricted region said. Hao felt a headache, saying, I don't want to follow them to the grave. The white-clothed man heard this, shaking his head and saying, I won't force you to take that path, to the extent where I was even opposed to them entering ahead of time. However, they still went too early, in the end all dying. Those individuals were in such a rush to head down this path, desired it so greatly, risking their lives to explore it. They knew that their own cultivation had reached the peak, unable to break through any further, which was why even though they knew they would fail, they still wanted to continue. Sigh. The white-clothed man actually spoke this with a sigh. I know that they respected me as their master, which is why they wished to fight in my place. The white-clothed man said. Hao was confused. What was he trying to say? Did this lord of the restricted region have great enemies? Why didn't he go himself? The white-clothed male gently brushed out with his hand. Heaven fell and earth fissured. Ghosts wept and deities howled. The universe torn apart. In the end, a quiet scene appeared. That place is... Hao was shocked, finding it hard to calm down. It was because he had previously went to that place, saw a portion of the truth. Now, the white-clothed man separated the void, making that scene reappear. This should only be a scene, a past memory, not them truly descending into this place. A dam rested there from past until now, faintly discernible. Sounds of great waves sounded from behind the dam. The sky was dusky, layers and layers of mist shrouding this place. This place was extremely mysterious. Nothing could be seen clearly. However, Shurhao still saw that on the dam there was an individual. Its body carried blood, releasing immortal Tao aura. This was a true immortal who died there. As his eyes shifted, in the distant part of the dam, there were similarly many undying level corpses hung on the dam, dying on it. Shurhao had been here before. Back then, when he left Immortal Domain with Sanzang and Shenming, looking for the path back, they had previously seen a lightning abyss. They passed through that path, eventually reaching this dam. In that place, he found traces of Willow Deity. Willow Deity also left, entering the world behind the dam. Apart from this, there was a trail of faint footprints, unknown what era it belonged to. It seemed like all those who came after followed these footprints. The path the white-clothed man spoke of was precisely that place, behind the dam. Shurhao couldn't hide his shock. He never thought that this would be it. Suddenly, his mind went taut because he saw a creature in that scene. His white clothes were purer than snow, untainted by a speck of dust, aloof and transcendent. He stood on the dam. In the end, he took a step out, heading inside. It was the Lord of the restricted region. His past self had entered inside. Shurhao was extremely shocked. Those who entered inside could still return alive? All of the scene pointed at the fact that this was a path of death. No one has ever brought back valuable information out from that place. He had previously seen immortal Tao remains there, one after another. Hong. Soon afterwards, he heard the crazy sounds behind the dam. It was as if great waves were surging, but also as if there was a great battle. Then they gradually faded into the distance. Day after day, year after year passed. Time fragments flew about. As he watched those scenes, he didn't know how much time passed. Was it a few months or was it many years? Finally, one day, there was a blood-colored palm that appeared, clinging onto the dam. It was soaked in blood, the damage severe, shattering the peace of this scene. Then that hand exerted force, pulling upwards with great difficulty, wishing to climb over the dam. Soon afterwards, a head was finally revealed. That person's hair was disheveled, his face covered in blood, eyes dim, lacking radiance. He struggled with great difficulty, finally getting on the dam. His entire body was red, covered in injuries. The space between his brows was cracked, body having countless bloody holes and other wounds. His condition terrifying. His armor was tattered, scarlet and bloody. His body was rocking from side to side, staggering, falling down several times, and then getting back up. He fled towards the distance, finally leaving the dam. Shurhao was shocked. He recognized that figure. This was the lord of this restricted region. Originally, his white clothes were purer than snow, yet now only tattered armor could be seen, long soaked red from blood. He had already lost his past exceptional bearing. The scene rippled, in the end completely disappearing. Shurhao was shocked. He snapped back to reality, giving the restricted region lord a look. Even someone as powerful as him, after going to the dam, almost died, only returning with great difficulty. Then, the disciples he taught all went there as well, most of them buried there. Those who drank this tea, most of them died by the dam. The white-clothed male said, "What exactly is over there?" Shurhao asked. He really was extremely shocked. Even someone as powerful as the restricted region lord almost died, barely able to come back alive. Back then, they all wanted to know as well. However, one fell after the other, all of them dying in the end. The white-clothed man said with a sigh. Then he looked towards Shurhao and said, "Do you still want to go? Do you dare head there?" If it was any other place, Shurhao might have some hesitation, really needing to think things over. However, towards this place, he had no hesitation. He immediately nodded, directly stating that he dared to go, and he had to go. It was because even if it wasn't for any other reason, just because Willow Deity left for the world behind the dam, it was already enough for him to set the resolution to make this choice. He had to go there sooner or later. This was on the premise that he got stronger, accumulated enough strength. Then he would march into the dam. "I have to go there, I dare go there." However, Senior, you should teach me heavenly arts and precious technique. Teach me everything you taught those people from before. Xiao's eyes shone. Speaking like this, he longed greatly for those ancient techniques. Immortal slaughter technique, dragon wrestling, heavenly art. All of these things were powerful, one knew it just from their names. Immortal ancient has ended. I have now waited an entire great era for you to appear, one of us. However, this time, I won't pass down any great methods again. The white-clothed male shook his head. Why? Xiao began to panic. From the first generation's Aogu until the last one's fairy Qingyu, which one of them didn't inherit a heavenly art or great method from this white-clothed male, obtained tremendous benefits. Every one of them studied different things. One could see just how heaven-defying this restricted region lord was. He grasped too many secret methods, a research god. I previously taught them exceptional great methods, having them become stronger. But in the end, none of them walked their own path, only following my past shadow. This type of path, even if they caught up to me, able to match me, so what? It is nothing more than another me. What I want is someone who can transcend beyond. The white-clothed man said. Then what do you wish to do? Xiao asked, his heart starting to pound intensely. After waiting for an entire great era, I finally met a suitable person. I will guide you on your own path, forge a true unmatched existence. The white-clothed man said. How are you going to do this? Xiao found it hard to calm down. He knew that a tremendous opportunity might be right before his eyes. Of course, all of it might also end up becoming nothing. In reality, he really wanted to learn those great methods, and then after having a good grasp of many different techniques, he would then create his own method, walk his own path. This way, it still wouldn't be too late. Take this piece of jade, you can leave for now. Once you have separated yourself from worldly affairs, come look for me. The white-clothed man's voice became extremely gentle again, carrying an alluring feeling. Multicolored light flickered. A piece of old-fashioned jade appeared in Xiao's hands. Go! The white-clothed man gestured with his hands. Xiao bowed, saying goodbye. However, when he raised his head, he couldn't help but be stunned, in complete disbelief. Around here, where were there any thatched cottages and grass? Everything was completely barren, the entire cosmos lake disappearing, the distant medicinal fields and others all dried up. There were only a few ruined mountains, all of them deathly still as well. This continued until Xiao raised his head and concentrated his gaze. Seeing a skull, snow-white like jade. Only then was he shaken. Right now, there was no jade piece in Xiao's hands, yet that jade piece really did exist right in front of that skull. Apart from that, there was a teapot that was damaged, as well as half a teacup, incredibly old-fashioned. Xiao was stunned. What kind of place was this? Who was he talking to not too long ago? Soon afterwards, he saw two other skulls, extremely dull, already damaged, behind the snow-white skull. The lord of the restricted region, as well as his pair of Dao children. Xiao felt his own voice shaking. A desolate scene. The past taboo existence, a glorious world-shocking individual. How did he die? Was he actually buried one day like this? There was no white-clothed man. No Dao children. Even more so, no thatched cottages. Grand metal palace halls. Cosmos lake. Spiritual mountain. Or anything else. Everything he saw before vanished. There was only silence here, as well as some dried bones, withered away over time, coldly existing in the silence, extremely bleak. Xiao felt a chill run down his body from head to toe. Just what exactly did he experience? Just now, everything was clearly real, everything unimaginable, as if it was just a dream of grandeur. However, he now woke up like this, a chill even running down his back. This really was frightening. One had to understand that he was but a self-release realm cultivator, cultivation profound, moreover someone who broke through the records of this great era, establishing a legend, a young expert that had never appeared before. However, he was still fooled, that dream too realistic. When he lowered his head to look at that snow-white, damaged skull, he couldn't help but take a few steps back. He just couldn't shake off this feeling of flusteredness. If his suspicions were correct, then it really was too terrifying. A glorious, restricted region lord ended up like this? The so-called high up above, enough strength to dominate the world, overlook all under the sky, in the end still became nothing, unable to save even himself, flesh going up in smoke. As the great world ebbed and flowed, his existence vanished. This was but the lord of a restricted region. Yet in the end, all of his hopes and efforts came to nothing, his body turning into white bones. It rested in this bleak and desolate wilderness, only accompanied by generation after generation of silence. This scene and situation were quite similar to the ghost appearing in dream and making a request ordinary people spoke of, the spirit of the deceased expressing his remnant will through this type of method. The lord of a restricted region was definitely powerful, able to alter his own fate, reign unmatched in the world, but in the end, he still ended up in this type of state, only able to appear through this type of method. It really was a bit pitiful. Xianxia looked at that snow-white skull, really finding it a bit hard to accept. Just now, he had interacted with it as if he was in a land of dreams. Was this all done by this skull? A cold wind swept through the dry and hard earth, releasing woo noises, making this place appear even more frigid. Xianxia took steps back again and again, staying a bit further from that skull. He began to search around the surroundings, carefully examining this place, wishing to find more historical traces and clues. There was an expanse of ruined mountains, immortal energy previously suffusing this place. In that dreamland it wasn't that tall, but it had heaven-suppressing great might, a great Tao mountain. On the mountain, there were previously metal palaces, every single one of them incredibly grand, even a single look making one's mind feel like splitting, their souls in pain from the pressure. However, now, apart from broken mountains, what else was there? Dang! His feet ended up kicking some crushed stones. A cold wind swept past, stirring forth some dust and ashes, revealing metal debris, as well as some building foundations. It was metal, previously a grand structure. However, now, there were only bits of remains left. They were all destroyed, no longer in existence. There were no unaging beauties or imperishable inheritances. Everything would wither away one day. Even a powerful existence like the lord of a restricted region turned to ashes with the passing of time. Xianxia turned around, arriving before the medicinal field. It was still here. One could see the rough outline of this divine earth. There were still crop rows as well as dried plants. It was extremely strange. Even the metal palaces had turned to ruins, yet there were still withered divine herbs here. It really was weird. The medicinal field shone. As Xianxia got closer, waves of light surged. Those dried great medicines and rotten divine herbs, at this time, became ashes. Xianxia was shocked. He didn't even get close yet. He released a sigh. This medicinal field's spiritual nature preserved its past appearance. Only what disappeared still disappeared in the end, could not be recreated. Then he turned around again. Along the way he saw the golden lion. It was completely quiet, laying there, not moving, as if still asleep. Xianxia walked over, giving it a pat. Sure enough, it was just sleeping. No danger to its life. What happened? The golden lion suddenly opened its eyes, all of the hair on its body standing on end, quickly backing up, looking at Xianxia with great alarm. Growl. It released a low growl. It felt great pain from a claw, and then couldn't help but lower its head. Moreover, recalled the events it experienced while it was asleep. Cosmos Lake, my skin and fur, flesh. It clearly remembered that when Xianxia crossed Cosmos Lake, it had also tried to, but in the end, its claw was completely corroded by natural laws, flesh coming off, only white bones remaining, leaving it in intense pain. Now, it could still feel that penetrating pain. Moreover, that claw had some blood on it, just that the skin, fur, flesh, and other parts all already reappeared, properly recovering. Xianxia naturally saw the blood on its claw, feeling extremely shocked. So what he experienced in that dream might not necessarily all be fake. Why did that Cosmos Lake dry up? The golden lion was a bit shocked. Then, when it examined its surroundings, it became even more stupefied. Where was all the lush verdance, the spiraling immortal energy? Everything disappeared, This place became a land of death. The so-called long-life medicinal fragrance, none of it could be smelled either. The golden lion was petrified. Then it clenched its teeth, lowered its head, starting to use its great claws to dig at the dried-up small lake. There was still fine sand covering that place. However, what left it shocked was that when it touched the sand, heaven shook and earth quaked, this place rumbling with noise. The golden lion quickly backed up, immediately stunned. It was because when it touched the sand, it was heavy to the point of almost making it scream out, every grain of sand comparable to a star. Xianxia was also shocked. He squatted down, examining the fine sand below the dried lake. He used his hand to examine it, as a result discovering with shock that it was too heavy, every grain of sand like this, as heavy as a star. This really is Cosmos Lake. Xianxia sighed with astonishment. Every granule of sand was a real star, refined into sand. Back then, green waves rippled, the water sparkling. This place was created by stars. The so-called Cosmos Lake, it had really existed. This place was a cosmos of its own. Yet it was used to decorate the area in front of the thatched cottage of the Lord of the Restricted Region. Just how great of an expense was this? As the Lord of the Restricted Region died, this cosmos ended drying up, lake turning into sand, the past grand view no longer appearing. Xianxia walked over to the skull again. There were no thatched cottages here, nor were there wooden stumps, everything gone. On the ground, the three skulls replaced the white-clothed male and two Dao children's positions, not the slightest bit off. The golden lion's entire body released chills, just now daring to believe what was before its eyes. Xianxia sighed. He squatted down. He wanted to bury the skull to prevent these remains from being exposed to the desolate wilderness anymore. However, what was shocking was that he couldn't move the snow-white skull at all. It didn't budge at all, as if it was a wall supporting heaven and earth. It was a head, why couldn't he move it? With his cultivation, he could easily pick stars or moons. Even grabbing down the heavenly sun wasn't an issue. Yet he couldn't pick up that skull. Soon afterwards, he discovered some abnormalities. When he brushed aside the surrounding earth, there were some stone slabs, some characters engraved on them. The handwriting was done by different people, some strokes powerful, some gentle and elegant. The name etched into the first slab was Aogu. Wasn't this the first youngster the Lord of the Restricted Region talked about, the one known to be the most powerful primal chaos clan's pride of heaven, from the beginning phase of Immortal Ancient Great Era? He examined them one by one. Sure enough, he recognized some familiar names, all of them the youngsters he saw in that dream. The final slab was left behind precisely by Fairy Qingyu. It wasn't an illusion. Everything was real. He learned a bit of the truth from these stone slabs previously. There really were those young heaven's prides who came here, moreover obtained teachings, paying their respects to the Lord of the Restricted Region as their master. Of course, at that time, it was already no longer a living Lord of the Restricted Region. It was just like right now, only a skull. In the end, they all wanted to bury this taboo existence's remains as well. Yet they couldn't do it, only able to leave behind stone inscriptions, pay homage to this place. Xianxia began to feel a headache. Just which generation was the Lord of this Restricted Region from? It was already only a skull at the start of Immortal Ancient Great Era, so which era did it die in? On the ground was a teapot, a piece of jade, as well as broken cups, everything extremely old-fashioned, all things he had previously seen in that dream. Xianxia reached out his hand. He was able to pick up the teapot as well as the broken teacups. What was shocking was that there was tea that came out, still bright red, even carrying a bit of warmth. He was shocked. Even after so many years passed, more than a great era, there was still tea and it was still warm? The golden lion was also shocked, its throat making a gulp sound. It was because the fragrance of that tea was too rich. Xianxia had a taste of that tea. It was still the same taste, bitter and astringent to an unbearable degree, just too unpleasant to drink. When he saw the golden lion stare at him like that, Xianxia gave it a bit. Then, the golden lion screamed miserably, rolling all over the ground. Its appearance as miserable could be, entire body about to explode. Bitter. It hurts. The golden lion screamed, its roars like thunder, rolling all over the ground. At the same time, Hao felt strange. When he raised his head, he discovered that the thatched cottage appeared again. The short mountain, the metal palaces, medicinal fields, everything returned to normal. Apart from this, there was a white-clothed man smiling gently, sitting before him, 2 Dao children behind him. I have said that this tea isn't something normal people can drink, he said with a smile. The white-clothed man reached out his hand, tapping the golden lion. It coughed out loudly, a few sparkling droplets landing on the ground. Only then did it recover, no longer in pain. Senior, Hao said with a trembling voice, it is time for you to leave. Once all worldly affairs are cast aside, return here for a chat. This time, Hao grabbed that piece of jade, no longer hesitating. When he got up, everything returned to normal again. This place becoming a desolate land, only bones behind him. My body has already passed on. What is gone will always be gone in the end. This was the voice Hao heard before he left. The golden lion shivered inwardly. It carried Hao on his back, running with everything it had even without being given an order, rushing into the distance, leaving this life-restricted region. The golden lion really was scared badly. It was just a skull, unknown just what age this existence was born in. It refined a cosmos into a lake, able to transform the past and present into a dream. It truly was horrifying. Crazily sped forward, moving as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, it crossed hundreds of thousands of li, much faster than its normal speed. Hao was also thinking to himself, caressing the jade piece in his hands. It was extremely old-fashioned, an ancient article. He stored it away. It was just a head, not a true body, yet it already taught many immortal-level experts, all of them heaven-warping figures of different generations. He really was extraordinary. Of course, what Hao cared about the most was the dam the Lord of the restricted region had previously visited. He went in, moreover returned alive. This was extremely shocking. Based on what he knew, everyone who went there had already died. Not a single person came out alive. Only, his injuries were too severe, still dying in the end. Hao released a light sigh. In the scenes he saw not long ago, that white-clothed man's appearance when he crawled out of the dam was still fresh in his mind. His entire body was covered in blood, body unstable. For even the lord of a restricted region to fall to this extent, that place really was too shocking. In the end, he died, his remains left in this miserable ancient land. When a powerful individual's flesh was destroyed, even if only a drop of blood remained, they could reforge their body. However, this type of powerful restricted region lord instead directly lost his life like this. This type of injury really was terrifying after all. When they left far enough into the distance, when he turned around again, everything behind him was quiet, layers upon layers of mist filling that place, returning to primal chaos, no longer in view. Really is strange. The golden lion was in doubt. He tried walking a few steps, but discovered that he actually got lost. Feeling dizzy, hard for him to continue. In the end, it couldn't find the path anymore. Which way should we go? It became nervous. It discovered that the world around it was hazy, extremely dusky, making it confused and disoriented, losing his sense of direction. Hao was shocked. He didn't lose his sense of direction, able to clearly see the distant radiance, as well as the mist behind him. Was it because of the jade piece? Hao produced it, throwing it onto the ground. Then, he discovered with shock that he also felt confused and disoriented, the world itself turning. He raised his hand, quickly fetching the jade piece, now understanding what was going on. Don't stop. Just continue forward, Hao said. That seems to be the way back, the golden lion said with uncertainty. When Hao heard this, he knew that it was now completely confused. Don't ask too much, just go straight. Sure enough, after continuing for 500,000 li, everything finally returned to normal. He saw the sun, the birds and beasts, completely breaking free from that strange region. When the golden lion stopped again, carefully turning around, it discovered that a great river surged behind it, cutting off its path back. Moreover, there was lava that covered the earth and other things. It was stupefied. When it rushed in this direction, it definitely didn't see these landforms. This was extremely strange. It knew that even if it continued searching, there was no way it could approach that life-restricted region anymore. It was located in primal chaos space. Dong! In the distance, intense sounds rang out. There were some giant mountains that collapsed, rubble rushing into the sky, smoke and dust everywhere, extremely sudden. Father, mother! Xianxia was alarmed. It was because he saw a warship rushing through the mountain range, causing many mountains to break apart. What happened? With a sound, the golden lion rushed out, quickly bringing Xianxia towards that area. Xianxia leapt off, arriving on the warship, seeing them. My child, you've returned. Qianxia released a sigh, now completely calming down. Before, they were extremely nervous, fearing that something unexpected happened to Xianxia. Soon afterwards, Xianxia understood what happened. After Xianxia and Qianxia left with the children, they rushed into the distance, sending the children to a safe place. They had Xianxia watch over them, while they themselves came back to look for Xianxia. Even though they knew that their cultivation levels weren't as great as Xianxia's, as his parents, they were still too worried, following the way back out of fear of something bad happening to him. In the end, they were just like the golden lion. Once they went back, they got lost. The battleship began to toss and turn, bashing left and right. All right, let's leave this place. Don't come back here after. There is a mysterious domain surrounding it. This is a life-restricted region. Xianxia explained. 100,000 li out, they met Xianxia, as well as the children with nervous expressions on their faces. All of them were safe. When they saw the warship, as well as the golden lion and Xianxia on it, the group of children cheered, all of them calming down. Come on, all of you should get on. When the group of children heard this, they were like a group of little monkeys, quickly rushing onto the warship. Some of the children had only started walking, their ages extremely young. They were swept up onto the ship with a wave of Xianxia's hand. The warship continued forward. When they arrived in an inhabited area, they finally knew where they were. Heaven region. The lower realms had 8 regions, separately heaven, earth, mysterious, void, space, outer, flood, wasteland. They were also called the 8 great prisons. This is heaven region. There used to be a life-restricted region here. However, no one in the higher realms knew. Xianxia said with a sigh. Could it be that it is precisely the restricted region of Crucifix in Yang Earth, forced into the lower realms heaven region? Xianxia asked. There was a high chance, after all, after leaving Crucifix in Yang Earth, that stone stairway led directly to a restricted region in the lower realms. The two ought to be connected somehow. Perhaps. Xianxia nodded, but the significance wasn't that great. The warship moved through the sky. It was absolutely massive, as if a dark cloud was moving through the sky dome. Soon afterwards, it penetrated a realm wall, hurrying towards the other ancient regions. This level of worship from heavenly deity institution was something an elder personally refined for Xianxia, so it naturally had immeasurable divine might, able to cross over realms. Mysterious region, it belonged to one of the 8 great prisons. Of course, this was for those of the higher realm. For those of the 8 regions, it was an extremely powerful ancient region. When Xianxia and the others moved through the void, after passing through the realm walls, they arrived in this region. Mysterious region had Western Sex Foundation in the lower realms, Immortal Mountain's descendants, both of them top-level inheritances. However, Xianxia and the others were merely passing by, not preparing to pay them a visit, nor did they want to stop. Their hearts were set on speeding home, wishing to return to Stone Village as soon as possible. If they were passing the Kuanpeng Nest, Divine River where paper boats drifted, Western Tomb Realm, and others, he might make a stop, but right now he was rushing forward. Wang! The void trembled. Another large ship appeared, the two almost colliding. This ship was quite tastefully designed. Extremely brilliant, divine birds and vicious beast void images swirling about it. These were the embodiments of bone texts used to protect the ship. It looked rather valiant, as if it was the ship of a king. However, compared to Sherhao's ship, there was no need to even think about it, not even of the same order of magnitude. However, in these lower realms it was already quite special. At the same time, Sherhao's warship was rather ordinary-looking, just a bit bigger. When one really sized it up, there wasn't anything too special about it. The main thing was that when he arrived in the lower realms, he carefully controlled it, or else, if he operated it at full force, it would definitely release powerful fluctuations at the self-release realm. If that happened, the skies would fissure wherever they went, the nearby mountains and rivers all crushed. Unknown just how many creatures would tremble in fear. Who? On the other side, someone shouted from that richly ornamented great ship. Sherhao stood at the front of the ship, not speaking. He felt a wave of emotions inside. He finally returned. This world lacked complete natural laws, its suppression towards him minimal. If he took action here, his power would be magnified many times over. These mountains and rivers, for him, seemed too brittle. The origins of those people on the other side were clearly not small, at the very least, could be considered a great power in mysterious region. When they saw how absent-minded the other party was, a bit stunned, they immediately felt a bit annoyed. Hey, youngster, why are you blocking our path? Don't tell me you guys want to stand in our way. Even though it was an elder, his temper was fiery, loudly shouting out. Oh, my apologies. We were just passing by, unintentionally doing so. Sherhao snapped out of it, nodding towards the individual on the other side. The golden lion rolled his eyes, expression unkind. If it was the one responding, it would have just crushed that entire warship with a single claw. Who was blocking who? However, Sherhao had long warned it that unless necessary, it should not act viciously in the lower realms. Uncle Feng, what's wrong? A gentle voice sounded. Several maids followed a young miss to the front of the ship. This young lady was extremely beautiful, a rare beauty. She wore a golden dress, now standing at the front of the ship. The corners of her dress fluttered about, making her look graceful and moving. There was a rhomboid imprint between her brows, a pair of jade horns in her hair, looking like a dragon girl. The young lady raised her head to look at the large ship on the other side, even more so seeing the young man at the front of the ship. She was immediately stunned, not daring to believe her eyes. You are... After many years had passed, that young man was still delicate and pretty, not changed that much, only growing a bit taller, becoming more and more heroic and refined. His eyes were still just as bright. Sherhao! Finally, she shouted out with great certainty. Sherhao! That Sherhao? The legendary little stone? At the bow of the ship, a few people immediately released cries of alarm, all of them staring at the young man on the great ship. Correct, he is... the little stone. There is no mistake. I've seen him in the Void God realm. It is definitely him. Heavens! It really is the little stone. Why did he appear? Did he return to the lower realms? I've met him before while accompanying the young miss in the past. He is the little stone. At the bow of the ship, a group of girls chattered on, shocked and excited. Even the elder called Uncle Feng was stunned, in disbelief as he stared at that youngster. Princess Xianxia, it's been a while, Sherhao said, revealing a startled expression. He didn't expect to meet an old friend so quickly. Mysterious region, even Western sect and Immortal Mountain established their sects here in the lower realms. Compared to the other regions, it was superior. Princess Xianxia was one of Mysterious Region's 10 great beauties. Back then, when a direct descendant of Immortal Mountain's Qin clan chased after her, he had previously had conflict with Sherhao. After so many years passed, Princess Xianxia didn't change that much. Still beautiful, her beauty moving and otherworldly. Right now, her small mouth was in an O shape, as if she was looking at a ghost. Didn't you head into the higher realms? You could still return. She felt that this was inconceivable. Even though she was beautiful right now, she was still a bit stupefied, a bit of a blank expression on her face. Who am I? The legendary heaven-warping supreme being. Where can't I go to? I missed home, so I came back. Sherhao said frivolously. Those people completely believed now. This was precisely the little stone, just like the legends, his skin thick, narcissistic, and loved to eat, liking female fatties. Only after a long time had passed did Princess Xianxia snap out of her daze. This was too shocking. The legendary little stone came back after running into the higher realm. Little stone, I wish to invite you to my clan as a guest. Princess Xianxia's large eyes flickered brilliantly, flowing with light, inviting him to her clan. I just returned today, so I need to return to Stone Village first. Please wait for a bit of time. Hao said that he had to return to his home first. He laughed and said, if you are free, you can come to Desolate Region's Stone Country to look for me. Okay, I will come for you soon. Princess Xianxia nodded, carrying an expression of happiness. Soon afterwards, they separated, the two warships moving through the void again. That day, news of the little stone's return spread throughout Mysterious Region, shocking every clan and sect. Everyone didn't believe it at first. This was truly explosive news. The warship was extremely fast, like a streak of transient light as it cut through the sky. When the divine light was released, many people in Mysterious Region mistook it for a falling star. Soon afterwards, the warship tore through the realm wall, starting to cross through another region. Desolate Region, they finally arrived, returning to this familiar land. The warship stopped, floating in the sky. Hao stood at the front of the ship, overlooking the boundless great earth. The land was vast and boundless, ancient trees towering from primitive mountain forests. This was a great wilderness, most of Desolate Region like this. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called Desolate Region. Hao took a deep breath. Compared to the higher realms, the spiritual essence really was extremely thin, unable to provide the body and soul with essential nutrients. However, Hao didn't feel the slightest bit disappointed. His heart calm, feeling a type of satisfaction, feeling moved and blessed. It was because he finally returned. This was a familiar feeling, the homeland he cherished. He had left this great earth for many years. When he carefully added it up, it had been more than a decade already. He really did hold this place dear to his heart. Now, when he looked at this world, he felt incredibly fulfilled. Shwa! Hao's figure rushed out, leaving the bow of the ship, rushing towards the great earth, descending from tens of thousands of zhang, stepping onto the great earth with a pung noise. He grabbed a clump of earth and then raised it up. I've returned, Hao roared out. Even though this was the great wilderness, it still belonged to Stone Country's border, as well as a path he had walked through before, connected to Stone Village. Follow behind me, I'm going first, Hao shouted, and then he rushed into the forest. It was because he was scared that a massive warship moving over the sky would disturb Stone Village. That was a pure land, a place of refuge, aloof from worldly affairs. The villagers were too simple and down to earth. He wished that place eternal peace. This was his heart's natural harbor. At the border of the great wilderness, the plant life was luxuriant, many vicious birds and savage beasts roaming about, all of them wild descendants, the larger ones comparable to mountains. Back then, when Hao was still a youngster, he had personally crossed this great wilderness, constantly facing trials of life and death, having to avoid all types of powerful ancient beasts and vicious birds. Now, when he walked through this great wilderness, he seemed to have become a great humanoid vicious beast, all of the divine birds and others avoiding him. Auho! A golden-winged divine ape jumped out, its body massive, several zhang tall. It had a pair of golden wings behind it, its wide mouth full of fierce teeth. It threw itself at Hao. This was a beast king, no one its match within a range of thousands of li. All of the birds and beasts bowed down before it. When it saw a humanoid vicious being walking through this place, making all beasts flustered, it leapt out, attacking Hao. Even a little monkey dares act wildly. You should just come back to Stone Village with me to guard the gates. Hao reached out his hand, pressing out. Multicolored light was released, directly restraining it. He carefully examined it, revealing a strange expression. He actually recognized this creature. Back then, when he was passing through the mountain range, he had even hidden from it. At that time, he was extremely weak, still a child. Now, more than a decade later, he could easily capture this divine ape. When he thought of the past events and then about his experiences over the years, Xianxia felt a strange feeling. He felt blessed, but also bitter. Back then, he was only 8 or 9 years old. Yet he already dared rush into the great wilderness, bringing his brother Qingfeng with him as he ran around, hurrying to Heaven-Mending Pavilion to enroll. He really was quite daring back then. Shua! He tossed the divine ape onto the warship 100 li out. Extremely accurate. Xianxia moved through the mountain forest with large steps. This was a path he had walked on before. He was searching for his past memories. Only, things were completely different now. Along the way, he didn't need to hide, didn't need to avoid certain areas. That was why from time to time, there were some vicious beasts who attacked him. However, just by releasing a bit of his aura, all of the kings of the forest would flee. Along the way, he saw a few giant beasts. Being able to survive while making his way through the great wilderness in the past really wasn't easy. After all, back then, he was still young, his cultivation insufficient. Xianxia began to release his divine awareness, searching this great wilderness, wishing to see if there were any especially powerful creatures. He really did discover something, revealing an expression of shock. There were experts who lit their divine flames here, a deity-level existence. One had to understand that there weren't many people in the entire desolate region, especially later on. After that great purge, all deities disappeared, no longer in this world. Xianxia's expression became serious. With a flash, he rushed into a mountain range 900 li out, wishing to see just what kind of creature it was exactly. After all, there was Stone Village in this great wilderness. A deity-level existence appearing here would most likely be a great threat. He was extremely worried. After all these years had passed, did Stone Village experience something? This was an elegant and refined place, water vapors rising. A silver waterfall descended from the mountains, roaring as it poured into a pool, producing mist, making the spiritual essence here hazy. A black creature lazily laid on a large limestone on the shore, one leg crossed over the other, extremely relaxed, currently throwing roasted fish into its mouth, basking under the sunlight. Xianxia immediately had a strange expression on his face. It was too familiar, he recognized this fella. This was a large black tortoise. It was really big, many times larger than even a millstone, entirely pitch black. It had a lazy appearance, extremely comfortable and relaxed as it laid there. Why would an ordinary tortoise do this? It laid there, limbs that long, able to even cross its legs. This kind of appearance really didn't make it look like it was of the good sort. Third Blackie, why are you hiding here? Xianxia said. He naturally recognized this fella. It was the tortoise who ran down from the higher realms. Back then, Xianxia captured it, turning it into a mount. However, when the 7 deities stirred up chaos, it ran while Xianxia faced the enemies. Later on, Xianxia wasn't able to find it, in the end leaving for the higher realm. A ghost! The black tortoise's body immediately went taut, the movements too quick and swift. Its arms and legs reached out, while carrying that big black pot on its back. It quickly ran. What are you screaming for? Did you already forget about me? Xianxia shot it a look of disdain. This rascal ran even faster than a rabbit back then. When he risked it all against the 7 deities, this black tortoise was running with everything it had. How is it possible for you to be here? Heavens! A ghost! Just hurry and leave, the big black tortoise screamed, turning around and running. Pong! How could it get away? Xianxia grabbed its neck with a single motion, dragging it over, revealing a mouthful of snow-white teeth. I'm hungry. Feel like having some tortoise soup. You just happen to have a black pot on you. It really saves me the trouble of fetching one. Big bro, please spare my life. It really is you. I have eyes but fail to recognize empty tie. I thought a bastard was pretending to be you. The big black tortoise's face really changed quickly, immediately revealing a lowly smile. A bastard? Are you cursing me? Or are you cursing yourself? Xianxia stared at it, not pleased at all. Cursing myself. The large black tortoise hurriedly slapped its own mouth. Its tortoise arms were extremely long, movement nimble to the point of leaving one speechless. Big bro, how did you come back? I really am shocked to the point where my soul almost left my body, which is why I spoke so irresponsibly. You are a magnanimous great figure. I was too shocked and also extremely curious. I never thought that after 10 years, I would still be able to see your great self. I'm not even as old as you, still in my prime. The 20s are the golden age. Sure how rolled his eyes. The big black tortoise really was shocked. Even though its expression was exaggerated, one could tell that it really was absolutely horrified. It never would have thought that it would see Sure how again like this. At the same time, it was extremely speechless, inwardly apprehensive. Why did this master come back again? Back then, when Sure how left the lower realms, it had cheered loudly, screaming that this world belonged to it. It was because at that time its strength was great, could be considered a top-level figure under heaven. Once Sure how left, who could still restrain it? Why are you here? Sure how asked it. I'm obviously looking for Stone Village. The big black tortoise blurted without thinking. Then it immediately regretted it greatly. What are you trying to say? Back then, when I was here, you ran. Now you are sneaking around alone, looking for Stone Village? What are you trying to do? Sure how stared at it. Big bro, you absolutely must not misunderstand. Because I admire you so greatly, even more so yearned for Stone Village. I was prompted by a sudden urge recently, which was why I earnestly searched around here with the mindset of making a pilgrimage. The big black tortoise's hands moved together, making a devout gesture. Only, those small eyes were moving around, selling out its true intentions, its face looking extremely lowly. Don't tell me you want to disturb my old nest? Attack Stone Village? Sure how's eyes were fierce. I'm being accused wrongly. I wouldn't dare even if I was beaten to death. Forget about Big Bro still reigning powerfully in this world. Even if I rushed there is a good-for-nothing monkey there, so I wouldn't dare act recklessly. The big black tortoise said loudly, doing its best to beat its chest, express its sincerity. Who are you calling a monkey? Sure how spoke out in the Xian's place. This was one of the glorious, most powerful archaic clans, yet it was called a good-for-nothing by this black tortoise. Ah, right, I spoke wrong. That is a great monkey. No, Xian, he is quite strong. The big black tortoise acted cockily. Enough already. Stop speaking nonsense. Sure how looked at it and said, since you want to go to Stone Village, I'll bring you there. The big black tortoise's face immediately became like a bitter melon, completely sunken. It directly clenched its teeth. Back then, it even ran, so now how could it be willing to be controlled by another, follow behind this little demon? What is the meaning of this? Sure how shot it a look of disdain. I was just too happy, too moved. When I meet Big Bro, it is simply like meeting my own mother, about to shed tears of joy. Let's go. I will follow Big Bro to Stone Village. Us brothers need to properly have a drink. Won't go back until we are completely drunk. The big black tortoise put on a moved to tears act. You scoundrel. Really don't know how to speak properly. Sure how directly slapped it, and then warned. My parents are in the back. When the time comes, you better not call us brothers, you hear? The big black tortoise cried out. What is wrong with turtles? What's wrong with tortoises? This is a natural race. Could it be that we cannot be brothers with a human? Pa! Sure how directly slapped the back of its head again. Back then, you became my mount. Yet now you are showing off? Of course not. All right. We'll call each other brothers only when no one is around. The big black tortoise shrunk its head, hiding into the big black pot. Along the way, they moved quickly. Sure how didn't make any more delays. He already reviewed the path from before, now hurrying straight to Stone Village. He could finally see it from the distance. A village was resting in the great wilderness. That place was extremely peaceful, like Shangri-La. It didn't change, still there. Sure how's eyes began to turn sour, almost shedding tears. After all these years, he felt joy, happiness, but also grief and helplessness. During this period, he always hid his true emotions. Even when he faced his own parents, he didn't reveal them, Only now did everything from deep within leak out. In the Battle of Desolate Border, Great Elder died, his conclusion tragic, blood dyeing the skies. Huolinger was brought away together with Sin Province, life or death unknown, falling to the other side. Outside Imperial Pass there were no more battles, it seemed like they won. But in reality they lost. So many people died, so much blood was shed. In the end, the battle only came to an unexpected conclusion. They could be considered defeated, leaving with regrets and sorrows. Great Elder's death, Huolinger and Sin Province's capture. How could How not let this weigh himself down? How could he forget these things? It was just that he hid them at the bottom of his heart, not talking about it. He wanted to return to the lower realms, return to Stone Village. This was a type of subconscious escape, wishing to return and heal. Now he finally came home. He was home. Hao's eyes were red. Only after standing there quietly for a long time did he calm down slightly. Big bro, let's go. We're here. Who would have thought that this place would be this beautiful? Wow, there is a herd of heavenly horses there. They are snow white and brilliant. Not even a strand of mixed fur. Oh my goodness. There is even one with dragon scales. Moreover, not normal dragon scales. The big black tortoise cried out. Pa! Hao gave the black pot a smack, its body shaking until it rolled its eyes. Just the release of a bit of self-release realm fluctuations was enough to make it go unconscious. Behave yourself, don't make a big fuss. Hao walked forward. When there was still several li left to the village, he felt extremely warm inside. He finally came back. It really wasn't easy. Not far out was an expanse of mountains. When he passed through this place, he made a brief stop. Back then, when the little stone's name spread throughout the entire world, the entire lower realms in uproar, he had been buried here for roughly a year. I wonder if the five-colored sparrow is still here. Hao really wanted to understand its origins. It was because the reason he was able to revive that time was greatly related to some seeds it brought over, planted in the grave, making this place flourish with life force, allowing him to rise from the dead. The five-colored sparrow was extremely mysterious. Ever since Hao could remember, it had already been in the village, disappearing from time to time. If one was to ask who could bully Hao, it would be the only one. When he was young, he failed every time he tried to chase after the five-colored sparrow, often falling, and then making him cry as a result. When he got bigger, he still couldn't catch that strange little bird. He was now close, he could see the villagers. Precisely where the village was, some people were coming and going. They were just too familiar. The hunting team returning from a rewarding journey, bringing many giant vicious beasts back into the village. Were those his childhood companions? Was it Dazhuang and the others? They were large and tall, now already the leaders of the hunting group. They grew up. In front of the village, there were many willow trees planted, gentle and sparkling green. Were the villagers still reminiscing about willow deity? There was an altar where it took root before, becoming the most sacred area, no one occupying that area. Were the villagers still hoping for its return? It was extremely lively inside the village. It was because the hunting group returned. A few children ran around, all of them some little fellas from 3 to 10 years old, full of activity. However, Hao didn't recognize a single one of them. These were definitely children that were born after he left, all of them energetic, body strong. Even children who were very young could jump high into the air, stronger than their parents. Hao arrived at the head of the village, a big black tortoise following behind him. The big black tortoise walked on 2 legs, behind it a big black pot, its arms and legs long, appearance rather intimidating. Ah! A monster entered the village. Hurry and defeat the monster. What monster? We have the great formation willow deity left us. All monsters would be chased off. You children shouldn't make trouble. There were adults who berated. Really, come and look. There's a big turtle even darker than Donkey Poo. Fangs bared, eyes widened. It's coming, a 3-year-old child shouted. At the front of the village, the big black tortoise was beyond angry, its dark face about to turn green. It really was baring its teeth and glaring out, but it was because this little brat really didn't know how to talk. Even though it was a black tortoise, they couldn't call him Big Turtle like this, right? Encountering Xianxia was one thing, it admitted its defeat, yet these little brats were also making noise, really making it glare out. This was especially when it heard the following commentary, darker than donkey poo, making it want to immediately vomit blood. Inside the village, there were men and women, young and old, surrounding the hunting team. Now, there were finally some who turned around, looking towards the village entrance. In that instant, the village became quiet, everyone stupefied, as if they became petrified. The villagers all looked over, every one of them finding it hard to open their mouths as they looked at that person at the front of the village. A youngster, his figure tall and straight, appearance delicate and handsome, looking like he was only 17 or 18 years old, stood there. His face was gentle, eyes clear, now walking over step by step. So many years had passed, now more than 10 years already, yet they could still see this face, meet this person. The adults all felt themselves going stupid, not daring to believe what they were seeing. Only the children were confused, full of confusion. Some of them became nervous, raising their heads and tugging at the adults' clothes, nervously asking, "Mom, is he a big monster? Are uncles and the others scared? Why aren't they saying anything? Grandpa, is that a human form big monster? Even its servant is so dark and vicious. He can even walk through the formation. Enter our village? This is too scary." Some of the children revealed expressions of fear. "The little guy!" Finally, someone shouted, moreover running towards the head of the village. There were some adults who directly scolded their children. "What monster? This is your uncle. The uncle who fought his way into the higher realm alone. Little brats, who taught you to speak such nonsense?" There were some who directly slapped the bottoms of the brats at their side. Everyone now rushed over, this place becoming extremely noisy. Everyone shouted loudly, especially the group of robust young men in their 20s and 30s. Soon afterwards, Xianxia was thrown into the air. "Is this real? You actually came back. Let me take a bite. This really is flesh, not fake. Brat, you left for more than a decade at a time, now showing up so suddenly like this. Little guy, hurry. Let me take a look. Let me see how you've changed." The group of people were too worked up. His childhood companions pushed to the very front, surrounding Xianxia. They felt as if they were dreaming, truly not thinking that they would be able to see him today. There were others who shouted his childhood nickname, "Little Guy," extremely intimate. Xianxia's nose felt sore, hot tears pouring down. This type of feeling really was great. He returned and now met so many of his loved ones. After wandering for 10 years outside, all of the disappointment, frustration, powerlessness, and regret completely vanished. He felt a warmth spreading from head to toe, full of spirit. What desolate borders bloodshed, return of defeat, what watching as those he was close to departed, separated by death. All of these things were pushed away. Right now, he only felt warmth. Those negative feelings, the bitterness, the difficulties, all of it disappeared, thrown aside. He was truly extremely happy here. Wow. You are that legendary little uncle? A group of little fellas were currently pulling at Xianxia's trousers, raising their heads, their little faces full of excitement, eyes about to go blind from smiling. Heavens, he's alive! The legendary uncle appeared. Awesome! Another 4 or 5-year-old little fella treated Xianxia like a big tree, starting to climb on his body. Is this true? This is the little stone uncle? He defeated all enemies under heaven, and then in the end, he ran into the higher realm to be a disaster. I'm too happy. I was able to meet the legendary little stone uncle. Another child jumped and hopped, cheering, face full of excitement. Xianxia was speechless. Just what were these kids taught? He even became known as a disaster in the lower realms? However, when he carefully thought about it back then, he really did give quite the few major powers headaches, a troublesome individual. Haha. This really is too great. Who would have thought that us brothers would meet again one day? I thought that you were already pursuing the immortal Tao in the higher realms, that you wouldn't return. De Zhuang was now already almost a zhang in height. He slapped Xianxia's shoulder. giving him a bear hug, eyes full of tears. Exactly. I heard that after one headed into the higher realm, coming back down is too difficult, almost impossible. Who would have thought that us brothers could meet again in this life? Ermeng was also extremely excited. Pihu, Huzi, and the others were also like this, their eyes all red. They now met their childhood companion again after 10 years. How could they forget Sure How? If not for him, how could Stone Village be in its current state? Spiritual medicines everywhere, becoming stronger year after year, no one outside daring to attack it? Child, let me take a look. You've grown big, now even taller than Uncle. Only, you really are a bit too feminine. Still like a child. Your face didn't change at all. Sure Lin Hu walked over. Haha. This really is too great. Our little stone came back. Sure Fei Jiao patted Sure Hao's chest. These two were the past leaders of the hunting group. Now they already left their duties, handing them over to Dazhuang, Huzi, and the others. Sure Hao really was happy, his eyes slightly red. He paid his respects to the older generation. A group of ants came over as well. When they heard the news, they all moved out, even more enthusiastic, pinching his face, pulling at his arms. Their skin thick to the point where Sure Hao's face couldn't help but become slightly red. That child, where is he? At this time, the older members of the village came as well. When they heard the news, under the support of the children, a group of elders hurried over, their steps not that steady, hurrying to the village entrance. Grandpa, Grandpa Chief, Sure Hao screamed out. He pushed aside the crowd, rushing over, immediately supporting an elder at the very front. It was precisely the old clan chief Sure Yunfeng, as well as the one who raised him up. Child, you finally came back. I didn't think that I would be able to see you again in this life. The old clan chief Sure Yunfeng was extremely moved, tears tumbling down his aged face. He didn't have children, never taking a wife in the village, but he raised Sure Hao up, treating him as his own. Right now, these emotions were hard to suppress.